I'll let you know when we're live. And we are live.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jim Dill, Chair of the Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry Committee, and we are meeting on a Wednesday today. Theoretically, this is our last day of committees. And with that, what we will do is we'll go around and do our introductions and get right at it. We've got a pretty long day. We got 4 work sessions today. So moving on my screen, next to me I see is Senator Black.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Russ Black from Wilton, representing Senate District 17, which is all of Franklin County and 4 towns in Kennebec.
Representative McCray.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Dave McCray. My home is in Fort Fairfield. I'm coming to you live from my daughter's place in Gorham. And I represent District 148. Thank you. Good morning.
Representative Schofield.
Good morning, Senator Dill and everyone. My name's Tom Schofield. I represent House District 112. I live in the town of Weld, and I represent 17 towns and townships in Franklin and Somerset counties, the snowy high peaks of Maine.
Representative Landry.
Good morning, Senator Dill. I'm Scott Landry. I represent District 113, the towns of Farmington, where I live, and New Sharon.
Representative Hall.
Yes, good morning. Representative Randy Hall from District 114, and I round out the rest of Franklin County right between Representative Schofield and Representative Landry.
House Chair O'Neill.
Good morning. My name is Maggie O'Neill and I represent House District 15, which is in Saukkoh.
Senator Maxman.
Hi, I'm Chloe Maxman. I represent Senate District 13, which is Lincoln County plus Washington and Windsor.
Representative Bernard.
Thank you, Senator Dill, and good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Bernard. I represent House District number 149, which is Caribou, Westmanland, and New Sweden, where it is not only snowy, it is snowing.
And Representative Pluker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Bill Pluker. I represent House District 95, which is Warren, Hope, Appleton, part of Union.
Great. We do have 4 work sessions today. We'll get to in a minute. And as I said, I'm Jim Dill. I represent Senate District number 5. And today with us is our clerk, Linda LaCroix, who's the IF&W clerk, and she's filling in today. And our analyst is Karen Netto. And as I said, we've got 4 work sessions, LD 2013, an act relating to PFAS substances contamination in the state. LD 219, an act to require the registration of adjuvants in the state to regulate the distribution of pesticides with PFAS substances. And LD 2021, an act to collect pesticide sales and use records for the purpose of providing information to the public. And finally, we'll finish off our work session on the ACF budget. And I see that Representative Gifford has joined us. So Representative Gifford, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Senator. I would. And my name is Jeff Gifford, and I represent good folks, Lincoln and Enfield, and District 142 right now. We're going to change to 28, but that's to be in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So we will go ahead and get started. We'll start right out. We're going to do them right in order as they are on the schedule. And that's 2013, an act relating to PFAS and PFOS substances contamination in the state. And I will turn to, before I turn to Karen, I see Representative Underwood has also joined us. Welcome, Representative. Would you introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Joseph Underwood. I'm from the Star City of Presque Isle, which is in central Ulster County. Good to see everybody this morning.
And Representative Osher.
Good morning. I'm Lori Osher. I represent District 123. That's a majority of Orono, the home of the University of Maine.
Great. Again, welcome everybody. So with that, Karen, if you'd like to bring us up to speed on LD 2013.
Good morning. So this bill should be, the testimony should be fresh in your minds since we had a lengthy public hearing yesterday. So section 2 of the bill is the meat of the bill. It sets up a fund to address PFAS contamination. The sources of the fund, there's no revenue stream, but it just says it's established within the department as a non-lapsing fund. And funds, the fund is funded from funds, wow, that's a lot of funds, accepted by the commissioner or appropriated by the legislature. And then I'm looking at 320K in section 2 of the bill. And then subsection 4 lays out the purposes of the fund. Subsection 5 talks about the administration of the fund. It's the Department of ACF. And then section 6, subsection 6 gives the department authority to adopt rules to implement this law. Then there's a 320L, which sets up an advisory committee on the fund to address PFAS contamination, and it lays out the membership. Section 3 of the bill directs the advisory committee to consider the report we received last month, findings and recommendations for a PFAS study plan supporting LD 558. They're directed to consider that report when developing their recommendations. And then section 4 of the bill is the appropriations section, which at this point is 100 million in fiscal year 23. So there was a lot of support for this bill. There were a few folks that testified neither for nor against. There were a group of supporters who had some suggested amendments. It was MOFCA, Maine Farmland Trust, Defend Our Health, and the Honorable Sharon Treats Organization, Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy. All of those organizations had suggested language attached to their testimony. And so before the public hearing, because it wasn't really a markup of the original bill, I did take a look at it to see what the suggested amendments are. And I think I can go through that now, but I think two of the major things that they do suggest is make changes to the membership of the advisory committee, and then changes to that subsection 5 relating to administration. There's a lot more detail in their suggested language, especially around health monitoring. And then they also sort of replace the term agricultural enterprise with commercial farming, although I think commercial farm would be more grammatically correct, but and then they also deleted the term biosolids. I think they described it as being too broad, and instead just refer to sludge or septage that has been applied. So that's their suggested amendment in a nutshell. Last night, I know Representative Pluker and others have been working with the department and interested parties on this. The department did send out sort of a bulleted outline, a framework of things that they would like to see in LD 2013. And then subsequently, Representative Pluker did put together sort of a markup trying to best synthesize recommendations from interested parties, farmers, advocates, etc. You know, so when we get to that point, I can screen share his markup for the committee's, work session. But, and there were also another amendment from solar interests that, the committee may want to talk about. But I think in a nutshell, there's obviously a lot of support for this piece of legislation, but it's just, it sounds like there's more work to be done to get everyone sort of comfortable with the language.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I would add to that Bill and I have had 2 or 3 meetings together or separately or more with the department to try to figure this all out. And last night, Bill graciously Representative Pluka graciously volunteered to try to pull all of that together, and I saw that he did. So I do want to thank him for working on that last evening. And we'll see if anybody has any questions for Karen, and then she can pull up what Representative Pluka has pulled together from our conversations. Anybody have any questions for Karen? I don't see any at the moment. Maybe once we pull that up, Karen, we'll see where we are. Would you, Linda, though, please let in Amanda Beal and Nancy McBrady to start with, please?
I'm sorry, Senator, who was the second person that you said?
Nancy McBrady.
I see her, yes.
That's a different group you're working with than you usually.
Yes, not used to the names.
Great. All right, so Karen, if you want to pull that up.
So would you like me to pull up the department's suggested framework first, that
Sure.
outline?
Sure, go ahead and bring that up, and
Okay.
if we have any questions for them, we can, and then we'll pull up what Representative Pluka kind of pulled together from everything.
Okay. And maybe once Director McBrady or the commissioners on board, they could maybe walk the committee through this.
Sure. Director McBrady or Commissioner, which one wants to kind of go through this?
Why don't I make some overarching remarks, and then Nancy might be the best person to walk through this. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much to the committee and to those of you who have really put a lot of work and thought into this. I think we all know this is coming together really quickly. Ideally we'd have a lot more time to think about this. So there are things that we haven't thought about yet that we know we will need to. And I think what we were really aiming for here was to try to recommend some parameters that give us the opportunity to figure this out. I mean, we're going to need a period of time to really figure out what the parameters of this program look like. And so it's really important to us that, for example, the advisory committee be given the opportunity to take some time and make recommendations about what the parameters of this fund should be. I also just wanted to point out that, as the conversation has evolved, there are a lot of things that are being proposed that this fund could support. And I think it's going to be really important also for the advisory committee to do that, to have those conversations, to really hear from farmers and make sure that we're focusing on the right things. I do think that, a buyback program for farmland and health monitoring, those are two things that could be very costly. And even though $100 million sounds like a lot of money, we don't totally know the scope of PFAS contamination yet and how many farms will be impacted. So that's something that we will need to absolutely consider. And again, this is our very quick thinking. And I would turn it over to Nancy to just sort of walk us through the mechanics of what we were able to put down on paper.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nancy McBrady, the Bureau Director at the Bureau of Ag, Food and Rural Resources. And to echo what Commissioner Beal just said, this is a framework. It was not suggested amendment per se, but perhaps aspects of it could be woven into final amendment language, in particular around setting up the process to dig in and create the work that will be done under the fund. So really, the first part was just illustrating that the fund components really are focusing on 4 areas. There needs to be specific language ultimately in the amendment that explains where the landing pad will be for fund dollars. So that's why we have that bullet there about the Chapter 398, et cetera, and we can continue to provide Karen with the necessary language around that. And then really the bulk of what we put forward that we thought was very important for consideration are the next slew of bullet points, which is the department in conjunction with the advisory committee goes through a number of very careful steps in which to start getting the work done, as I mentioned. I think it's very important that time is taken to see if there are examples in the world that we might be able to utilize for compensatory type of work under the fund. We definitely need to be able to consult with experts and participants that may have been in programs that deal with environmental hazards or health monitoring programs or things like that. Clearly need to continue to keep talking to the impacted stakeholders, such as through public hearings or taking public comments on any published documents, et cetera. So really, these are just things that we think are very important that the advisory committee asks the department to do and or does as well. What's really going to be important are determining the parameters of the fund components. How do we assess and determine financial assistance offerings? How do we evaluate agricultural land valuation in the face of PFAS contamination? How do we establish research priorities? How do we really fundamentally establish the need for long-term health monitoring and land monitoring, right? Because we need to keep an eye on the land too. What's the process and the criteria for determining how to fund those awards, creating the time frame. And then in order to, as Commissioner Beal just mentioned, allow there to be flexibility because we don't know what we don't know right now, allow there to be language in the statute that can give the flexibility to the department and the advisory committee to make tweaks. This is going to be an exploratory information gathering process for a while. And so I'm sure there will be corrections that need to be made. And so let's capture that ability to make those corrections here, such as creating any other elements the advisory committee determines to be appropriate. Also want to mention, if someone please scroll down a little bit more. We want to be very clear that we will need the capacity to hire staff as well as contract with third parties. This is going to be a very research intensive, broad skill set type of work. This will require folks with economic background, land appraisal, real estate background, legal background. We do not have the staff at present to be able to do that. And I think third parties might be able to come to the table to assist us with all of this. We ultimately need this in order to do our best job, in order to make the purposes of this fund realized. I think Commissioner Beal had mentioned to the bill sponsors that we might want to think about, and I don't know if it needs to be reflected in this legislation or not, but perhaps establishing that staffing actually go to the commissioner's office rather than be in the Bureau of Ag itself. Again, to elevate this, we need full-time jobs, full-time people working on this outside of the Bureau. So that's just something for you folks to realize we've been thinking about. We also propose that the advisory committee come back to the ACF committee with a progress update, letting folks know what has been done and accomplished, any other recommendations that may require legislation by March of 2023. We suggested that this become emergency legislation so that we can just hop to it. There is a need to, if we're able to do this quickly, tap into funding earlier than when the full fund is set up in order to get that hiring going. And then we just put forward our suggested advisory committee folks there as well. Did I miss anything, Commissioner?
I think the things that I would add is just, Nancy and I were just talking this morning and reflecting on the testimony from yesterday and hearing loud and clear that there was a feeling that there needed to be more farmer representation on the advisory committee, and we would be fully, in support of that, even beyond what we just, put out there as a starting point for conversation there. The other two pieces that I would just add is that something for you all to think about. I don't know if this is helpful or not, but it may be good to signal somewhere in this language that if there is future, future litigation that recovers funding related to PFAS, that either, the general fund be reimbursed for this allocation and or the fund get replenished if that is needed by any funds that are recovered through that process. And I'm definitely not legally minded, so don't use my words necessarily. I'm just putting that out there as a concept. And then the one other thing I would add, Amy Carlton is on the other side of the wall here. And I know she had some specific points that or concerns, recommendations about, what fund language should look like. There are some specific phrases that I think should be attached so that we're able to do what it is that you want us to do. So if you wanted to pull her through at this point, at this
Linda,
time,
would you let Amy in, please?
Yeah, she's just good with the technical aspects of how the budget works and how we access funds.
Morning, Amy. Welcome.
Good morning. So I just wanted to point out a couple of items in this. For logistical purposes and timing, we all know how important this is to keep things moving. And as written, it's written as a general fund appropriation, which works in a non-lapsing account. For timing wise, though, I wanted to point out that the last funding we received was a general fund transfer into a dedicated account. Some things and logistically, it's still coming from the same pot of money, but for timing, if you leave it a general fund appropriation, I would suggest that you make it a new general fund account, non-lapsing, so that it can be segregated from any other general fund dollars. And if you choose to do like you did in 398, which is do a language piece as noted in, I think it was section Q of 398, transferring into a dedicated account, which is on page 14 of chapter 398. So it would give you the allocation in the dedicated account, and the language would transfer the general fund in there. So I know this is weeds, but logistically, the ease in that is if it's in a general fund non-lapsing account, when the year ends and we need access to those funds that are in that account at that year end, we need to do a financial order to establish the allocation or allotment in the new year in that general fund non-lapsing account. Timing wise, that can take up to 8 weeks. So we would have a bit of a lag time to utilize those fundings that were left from the prior year in the new year. In the dedicated account, the way you set it up in chapter 398, we have a little more wiggle room there because it's a dedicated OSR account. So I won't bore you with the details on that more than that unless you have questions, but I just wanted to point those things out for logistical and timing issues that may arise.
Just to put in a little bit more of a, Sorry. Okay. Just to put a little bit more emphasis on something that Amy said about this being a separate account from the funds that we already have, and we're already asking for that $3 million. The parameters of this fund are going to be for things that need oversight. Not that the things in that other fund don't, but the other fund really needs to be accessible to the Bureau to do their day-to-day work, to do testing, to put in wells, to put, filtration systems, to, whatever it is that they need to be doing on a day-to-day basis that has a cost to help farmers in the near term. So just want to make sure, if somehow these funds were kind of glommed together, it gets a little bit more complicated. And especially if, as we're saying, we'd prefer to handle management of this at the commissioner's office level versus putting it on the Bureau, because there's already so much responsibility there for them around the day-to-day with PFAS. We just want to make sure that those two things don't get crossed.
Great. We got a bunch of questions, so we'll go to those next. Representative Pluker.
Was just going to say, Ms. Carlton, could you please put what you just said in writing and distribute it to the committee and Karen so that we can make sure it gets into the bill? That'd be great. Thank you.
Representative Underwood.
Yes, I have one question for Mrs. Carlton. Basically define what is a financial order to go from 1 year to the next year. If you could define it, please. Thank you.
Yes, so at legislative approval of a biennial or supplemental budget, our allocations are locked based upon what you approve. If there's something we need in the interim, an adjustment of some sort that's outside of your legislative budget approvals, we have to do a process which is called the financial order process, which is an interim request to do some sort of a temporary adjustment, which is not uncommon. It just takes a little bit of time. It actually is something we put together. It actually is signed by the governor's office and the governor, and it's put to the appropriations committee midterm to approve. Often there's a 30-day wait. And so they still get a look at it, but it's a different process that helps us in times where we need to go outside of a budget cycle to make any adjustment.
Thank you.
Representative Landry.
Thank you, Senator Dill. For the commissioner, I don't know if this is getting a little bit ahead, but I would think the first thing, or one of the most important first things we have to have, is timely testing. Are you looking at establishing an in-state lab? Is there a lab here that can do it already? From what I've heard, testing can take an awful long time. Are we looking at setting up a lab to do this?
Yes, and Nancy might be able to speak in more detail to this, but yes, there are, so not in our supplemental budget requests, but in DEPs, and I believe in DHHS as well, there are requests that are going to increase capacity in our state lab, as well as look at helping some other private labs get online with testing capacity so that we can access those results faster. And Nancy, if you have more to add, please.
Yeah, and you mentioned DEP, HHS. How are they including money in their budgets for some of this also?
For the testing piece, yes. Yeah. And as far as, I think you all, at one point, we did share with you a summary of all the different PFAS requests that are coming from, different directions, different departments. It's all in one, I think, 2-page document, and we can absolutely forward that to you again to make sure that you've got that information.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amy, I just had trouble processing everything that you said, so I'm wondering if you could repeat again just quickly what you were saying. I think you were talking about creating 2 different funds or something like that. I just needed it again to understand, if you could do it.
And you're in reference to the 100 million, not the financial order question, correct?
That's right. Yeah, you had originally said something, and I'm just trying to process. I got kind of lost in
Sure.
the detail. So
The way that it is written now, it's written as a general fund appropriation directly to the Bureau of Ag, which already has a general fund appropriation. So if it stays that way, my suggestion is that it gets separated into a new general fund account so that it's segregated with the carrying language to keep it from being, and the terms you need to use, I think, are a non-lapsing general fund account. And then I morphed into the conversation of how you handled it in chapter 398 by transferring via language general fund unappropriated surplus into a dedicated account, which is how we're handling the current funding that we have and how we're proposing to handle the 3 million that we currently have. And that gives us the flexibility and the timing wise for not needing the year-end adjustments as quickly to keep operations going. So that was a suggestion. And then as Commissioner Beal said, if there's, if we're allowed, our suggestion would be to move that out of the Bureau of Ag into 0401 program, so that it's managed at the commissioner's office level versus where the other PFAS funding is under the Bureau of Ag for them to do their work.
thank you. That's helpful. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm getting the structure. Don't know if I could repeat it, but you were saying make it separate from the current fund, but still give some flexibility so that you can act quickly. I think what I'd like to talk through with stakeholders, like I don't know who is going to answer this, but it's just part of what I'm wondering is what's the oversight going to be? What kind of limitations will there be? We had heard some input yesterday that there should be ability to be nimble and act right away on things like economic support and testing and the kinds of things that you're doing already. But that maybe there should be more boundaries around those boundaries should be established, but you should be able to be nimble. And then also we should have some guardrails in place for the other pieces. And just to share where I'm coming from with my question is, it's just it's a big chunk of money and I want to, it's not that I don't trust anyone here. It's really just proper process for me and wanting to know that we have guardrails in place, explicitly saying what these things are going to be used for and just establish some guardrails that would be helpful for me.
I mean, I would just respond that I think we're all wanting the same thing here. And the work that we're doing right now for the income replacement funding, that is ongoing. I mean, we're working on that. We're working to get that stood up as quickly as possible. You know, this bill passing won't change that. We're going to continue moving forward on that in the near term.
So what could anybody comment on possible guardrails or have we had the chance to look at that yet of what the structure will look like, or is that something we're going to have to talk about today or get some input on drafting and options?
Representative Pluka may be able to answer that. Representative O'Neill, it's one of the things we did kind of discuss a little bit. You may have some more insight on it.
Yeah, what I would say is, the way I've tried to imagine it is in two phases. We have kind of a near-term plan that's getting us from, and this is getting into some of the language that we'll look at in a moment. So we're getting from today to March of 2023. And in that time, the department is basically going to continue what they're currently doing in terms of setting up income replacement, doing testing. I think the other part we're going to add into that they're not currently doing is getting into some of the the medical health monitoring. And during that time, they're also setting up the advisory committee. So the intent of the language I wrote, and I I'm not a lawyer, but the intent language was that they're moving forward with that what they're currently doing and continuing, and they'll have access to these funds that we're creating hopefully today to continue that work if the current funding they have is insufficient to get them through to March. But during that time, they need to set up the advisory committee. And really the advisory committee is the guardrails that we're looking for. And so if they want to start going, as they start the work of building the longer term plan, so that's the short term plan, I said the longer term plan is getting into the full purposes, which are in section 4. They cannot pursue that without advisement from the advisory committee. So it has to be set up and functioning and ready to go. Or if they are unable to set up the advisory committee for some reason, not able to fill positions or something like that, they'd come back to the legislature in March of 2023 for a new authorization for how to proceed. And that was what I was thinking in terms of guardrails, was really the functioning and the recommendations of the advisory committee allow them to use the funds appropriately. And without the advice, they need to come back to the legislature.
But they would be reporting back to legislature annually. So we still would have oversight too, rather than putting legislators on the committee, because once you do that, that changes what the committee's role is once there's legislators on it. So we would have legislative oversight, and we heard that 2 or 3 times, I think, in testimony yesterday too. So make sure there was some type of legislative oversight of this. Does that answer your question?
So some things that I'm still wondering are, like, I know there are a lot of different funds in state government, and I'm thinking of the Fund for Healthy Maine, where, I'm not on HHS, but I know people talk about how funds get used in that, and that becomes an argument. And I'm just thinking about models of funds and how do we want to model this? What are we drawing on? And I don't know what else is out there. Something that in some of the meetings that I've had with folks, I've raised and requested that that folks look into, for example, the state Superfund site to see how that runs and parameters. And I feel like I need a little more about comparisons to different funds and the structure that's in place, just to know we're being thoughtful about how we structure it. That would feel better to me.
Another one, Representative, is the lead prevention program too that's out there.
Yeah.
Kind of the same idea. Yeah. Yep. Representative Bernard.
Thank you very much, Senator Dill. I don't know if now is the appropriate time to talk about, I would love to see a change if possible, or offer a friendly amendment regarding the makeup of the advisory committee. Is now a good time, or?
Just a second. Let me.
Okay.
Representative Pluker, I can't remember. I looked it over last night after you sent it out, or this morning. Did you put changes in there to the advisory committee other than what was suggested by the commissioner?
Yeah, the only changes that are in the current draft, and I don't think the whole committee has seen it yet, unless Karen sent it out to the whole committee, were the changes requested by the department. And I was going to say the one thing we heard from is wanting to make sure there's plenty of farmers on there. And so I didn't change the number of farmers because I wanted to make sure it was a full committee conversation before I started plugging numbers. So it's just with the original link.
Why don't you hold that thought, Representative, and when we pull up this, we'll be going down through the advisory committee and we can start playing with it then. Are there other questions right now for the commissioner or what they presented? If not, Karen, would you pull up what Representative Pluka submitted to you?
Did you want me to walk through it, or did Karen?
I think it would probably be best if you walked us through it, Representative.
Sure. So the stuff, Karen, did you leave my changes in highlight, yellow highlighter there?
Yes, it
Okay.
is highlighted.
And this is and this incorporates Okay, this does not incorporate all the changes from Sharon Treat from IATP.
Right, right. So, yeah, because I started working on a draft that did incorporate, so disregard agricultural enterprise. It should be, you know, if the committee is going to take their suggestion, it should be commercial farm, you know, and strike biosolids. But I think from the start, it sounds like that there's a desire to add an emergency preamble to this piece of legislation. So that's one piece. And then it looks like your amendment tweaks the purposes of the fund.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, just I am also in support of removing the agricultural enterprise, and the intent of that is that there are many different organizations in the state that could be construed to be agricultural enterprises, and we really want to make sure this is targeted towards farmers, and that was the intent of the commercial farm definition instead of agricultural enterprise. The other point about biosolids versus sludge and septic is just a much clearer term that's used in statute when we're looking at PFAS as opposed to biosolids. Then if we go down.
Can I also add that it doesn't look like what the committee is seeing now incorporates all the changes from MOFGA, Defend Our Health, Sharon Treat, you know, so just, I think that was your intent, but it's not precisely updated here. So
yeah, would it be, Mr. Chair, would it be best to work off of the document I was working off of last night, or do you want to kind of go through this one first?
Probably let's go through this one. It's highlighted. We can add things to it. But one thing I would ask Karen and the committee, I'm going to, at least I believe, that after we work this today, we're going to have to look at a major language review. And I hate to put Karen on the spot and the committee, but is there any way we can do this tomorrow, since we now have a found day tomorrow? We do not have a session tomorrow. So Karen, is that going to be something you think you can pull together by tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. And committee members, most of you available tomorrow, since we all probably had it as a session day. We probably all have it free to meet at some point tomorrow. I see heads nodding. All right. Let's go through this and see where we are.
Okay. Well, that opens up a little space there.
Right.
Okay. So there we have the first point there we have under section, I believe that's section 4, can't quite see, sub D. I added, instead of just new alternative cropping systems, we also added remediation strategies, technological adaptations, and solar development or other modifications of its operations. Similar language being added to E there. And then at the last phrase there, or as an alternative to agricultural production, making it clear that if you want to add solar, that you don't have to do solar in combination with agricultural production, because some sites might be so contaminated that they should not be grown on anymore, and really can just put the whole thing to solar. So it doesn't need to be a dual use situation.
Representative Underwood, do you have a question for Representative Pluker?
Yes. Could we get a PDF file sent to us, please? Read it at some point.
Yeah, we definitely will, and I'm sure we'll get another file before tomorrow, but if you'd like a copy of this now, we'll ask Karen to send that to everybody.
Thank you very much.
I just sent it.
Great, thank you. Continue, Ms. Representative Pluker, please.
Yeah. Okay, then K, we have 3 Ks there because I'm playing with it at 11 o'clock at night. Conducting research on alternative cropping systems, PFAS uptake of different crops, livestock systems to mitigate exposure to PFAS or remediate, or research into food safety criteria for food products. And I think we were hearing that pretty clearly from the testimony yesterday, that people really want to have a sense of one, they want technical assistance from the department in how to address the situation immediately upon realizing that their land or water is contaminated. And I think that is encompassed in the first few phrases there. And then we also heard clearly that people felt like they really want to know what is safe and what is not safe in terms of PFAS in your food. And so that is that last phrase, research into food safety criteria for food products. So so it could be that if you're, you know, the PFOA in your spinach is one thing, and the PFAB in another one is different, and something else is different. And so there should be some research into that, exactly what are we trying to prohibit and what are the levels of contamination that we're working with. Then we go down to N, assisting farmers in agricultural sectors who may not have been directly affected by PFAS contamination in marketing efforts, whose branding and marketing have been affected by the public perception of the state's PFAS contamination. So we're hearing from farmers who aren't contaminated, but are having to talk to their buyers about the fact that a lot of people are contaminated, and it's impacting their sales, and it's impacting the perception of their brand on the marketplace. So I think that a key part of what we're doing here is making it clear that the department has a role in helping those farmers in their marketing. And I think there's also going to be a lot of work as a state that we do to maintain our brand as we ship out of state and those kinds of things. And so I think there's a role in this fund for helping those farmers who are not explicitly implicated, but implicitly implicated. And then we have O, as may be appropriate and recommended by the advisory committee. So that is the intent of that language is to make it, this is not a shall, this is not a must, this is as appropriate. Regional planning with other states and the federal government to protect the main food supply and farmers from out-of-state contamination or potentially contaminated out-of-state competition. So if we're the only ones who are taking the lead on this conversation, and we are protecting our consumers from contamination, and we're helping our farmers who are dealing with it, but they're having to face competition from out of state, from states that are not being forward thinking and are not stopping contamination, then we want to be able to coordinate as appropriate regionally and federally to make sure that we're protecting our farmers from that competition and protecting our consumers from that contamination. Then as we go to section 5, and this is where I was attempting to put in the language that, it's going to take time to stand up this program. It's going to take time to hire for the positions and do that kind of thing. But I don't want that to get in the way of the farmers getting the health care that they need immediately. So, so they're going to create a plan, a long-term plan that establishes funding priorities, administration, and oversight. There's more detail on that in the next section. But if they do not have, the advisory committee stood up and ready to go yet, they can tap these funds until March of next year in pursuance of the goal of the priorities in section 5. If they get all the way to March of 2023 and they have not stood up the committee and haven't done that, then they need to come back to the legislature for further approval to do that. And then we're skipping down here. These are the bullet points that we saw from the department's presentation just a moment ago, looking at how the long-term plan. So I don't expect the long-term plan to be completely in place by March, but I do expect a report back on the long-term plan in March. So it lays out how they're going to go about creating that long-term plan in coordination with the committee after it's been set up. And if you could go back up a little bit, Karen, I'll just show some of those changes. So these are these A, B, C 1 and 2 are the things that we're expecting, are the priorities that we're setting for between now and next March. And I think a lot of this is already being set up by the department and under existing funds. So they're ready to move on that, and they're doing that now. And I think once we approve the budget, they're going to have more positions to do that as well. A lot of this language, I was making it may language instead of must language, because really we want guidelines here, but as issues come up and as needs arise, we want them to be able to pivot and take care of what is the most pressing concern of the moment. And the three things we have are income replacement, farm assistance and buyout program, and medical monitoring. And that looks good to me. And then we go back down to the advisory committee makeup, and this is where we're definitely, I'll finish the presentation and then we can go back for comments and questions if that works for the committee. I can't see who has their hands up. The committee shall hold public hearings seeking public input, and I put annually. I'm very open to, that seems like the public is involved, but it's not a burden to the committee. If we feel differently about how often they should be having public hearings, then happy to hear that. The department changed it from it being the CDC to DHHS, and that made sense to me. And then there's a lot of money being thrown around and handed back and forth. So we wanted a representative from the main financial industry or expertise in finance and lending, because a big part of what we're talking about is the buyback program. Now, this still has 2 members of the public representing the agricultural sector, and I'm happy to talk about that language and exactly the balance we want to find between people who are on the ground living this life and have the needs, and those who have some experience in how to administrate it. And then the last section is report backs there. This is all just my jibbity jabber gook from last night. But the department shall formulate a plan to meet the purposes of section 4 with the funds provided in this bill. The plan shall be reported back to the committee of jurisdiction of the commissioners represented the membership of the advisory committee. So that's DACF, DEP, and DHHS. The department shall immediately begin hiring staff to set up a program in the pursuance of the priorities outlined in section 5, and included in the report back shall be an update on the progress, including what positions have been filled, what needs have been identified within the agricultural sector, what funds have been dispersed and to what purpose, a list of goals from this bill that have been achieved and what is still in the planning stages. The report will also outline the functional status of the advisory committee. So it's this advisory committee needs to get set up, and I understand that it's not something that can happen immediately. So we just want to report back on how that process is going. And then if they have actually had meetings, we also want to hear reports from that meetings. I think it's important that because the advisory committee might have something different to say than the departments themselves. So I also would like just to hear from the members of the committee. And then also if the advisory committee is encouraging legislative initiatives, I would love to hear that as well, to see how statute or this bill, undoubtedly this bill will need to be changed at some point, and how it should be changed. And after the initial report back in 2023, the advisory committee and department shall report to the legislative committees of jurisdiction annually thereafter. The legislative committees of jurisdiction have the authority to submit bills in response to this report back. And then I have a list of things already that I want to change, and I can go into that, or we can ask.
Let's wait a minute before you do that. And Karen, please leave this up. And I know we have a couple things. One thing I would ask of you, Representative Plukin, I don't know if we actually discussed it or not, but when it says March of 2023, I'd put a date specific in there. It doesn't, it could be the 5th or 1st or 15th, but March just as this. So I think that's one thing. And then Karen, if you'd scroll back up to the advisory committee, I know Representative Bernard had a suggestion there, and I think there may be some other comments on this one that we've had already. So let's go to that one. Representative Bernard.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to talk about the makeup, the composition of the committee, and I would suggest, if I can, for a friendly amendment, 5 people from the agricultural sector, to make sure that we're covering both geographic areas of the state as well as sectors of agriculture. And I think that many should be able to cover it, as long as we're getting each area of the state. So I don't know that the word is diversity in geographic areas. I've read that before, or just various geographic areas of the state, as well as various sectors of agriculture.
Okay. I know that there was discussion around having more. Representative Pluker, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Senator Dill. I'm sorry. But that 5 number was one that I was thinking about as well, because it balances 5 people with experience in administration and 5 people who are on the ground. And that seems to be a good balance.
So there are a couple, yeah, so we'll look at that. Another question, and I don't know, Karen, if you're going to be tracking these, but actually where it says the commissioner, DHS, or the directors, I should be, or the commissioners designee, not directors. Minor, but that's in C.
Yeah, that's
Just a quick typo, or
exactly.
as
That's
Representative Pluka pointed out, his late night. I did notice, though, at one point we had somebody from the Attorney General's office to make sure we were not getting a foul of the law. That is no longer there. Was there a reason that that was dropped? I thought in the original bill we did have a.
yeah, it was in there. Yeah.
Representative Pluker.
Yeah, I thought that with the 3 commissioners representatives, access to the Attorney General's office would be there, you know, for questions and things we wanted to ask. And it was not, from my memory, on what the department was requesting. And so I kind of mushed that together.
So are we going, does anyone have an objection to going to 5 agricultural sectors? Okay. Representative Underwood, you have a question.
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you very much to Representative Pluker for putting all this together. And my question or adjustment would be under FE of membership, appointed by the commissioner. I'd like to have that deleted and substituted with approved by the committee of DAA, Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry. This committee. Substitute that.
Okay.
Well,
go
yeah,
ahead, Maggie.
that would slow
I mean,
down. I'd never see. I don't know that I've seen that before.
Well, the problem was, as far as I was concerned, putting too much power in the commissioner's office. If there's some other way of doing it, I'd be open to that. But I'd like to be able to take it away from the commissioner and approve it with another entity, I guess the best way to put it. Whether it be the chairman, vice chairman, and the 2 leads of this committee, or the lead of this committee of each party, and whatever.
I mean, the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate could make a couple of those appointments if you want to diversify the appointing authority.
Yeah, well, that would be good. That would be a good substitute to start with then.
Would it,
go ahead, Representative Pluker.
would it be possible maybe to be nominated by the commissioner and then approved, and then they could be like interim placements, and then we would approve the nomination?
Sure, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Karen, how does that work?
I don't know. I mean, this committee is advisory in nature, and now we're talking about confirmation hearings. I think we're getting way more complex on the makeup of the committee.
Yeah, I agree with that. Representative Pluker.
I meant that our committee, the ACF committee, does the confirmation hearings.
Oh, not at all. She's trying to bring Joe back into reality.
So,
okay, then we'll leave it as is then.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
I mean, I've just never seen that before, and there's probably a very good reason for it. I don't know if it's a delegation of power issue between different branches. I'm not sure, but it would be simple, probably more expedient to just have the Commissioner of Agriculture be the appointer of those agricultural positions.
Okay, then let's try it this way. Let's try how it's written then.
Okay. Before we leave this, I don't know if people, I see a lot of hands up. I don't know if it's on this section or not, but one thing we need to visit before we leave this, and that's length of terms of the individuals. But I will continue with hands. The next hand I see is Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Representative Bernard's suggestion about increasing ag stakeholders, and that was, I'm kind of going through my notes of things that I heard in the hearing and also emails that I've received. So I'm just gonna list a few things that folks suggested. One that I heard yesterday had to do with healthcare experts, and I heard two suggestions. One was having the CDC present, and I'm not sure, I don't know what fits under what umbrella, so I don't know if the CDC falls under DHHS, so I want to flag that folks suggested having the CDC there explicitly. And another thing that I heard was having just more generally a representative that was additional that that was a healthcare provider. And the other things that I heard for suggestions was a public member, not a farmer, to reflect community needs in impacted areas. Another thing that that folks suggested was ag workers, and they made a couple suggestions. I heard soil health scientists / animal health or other researchers, and I'm not sure if D takes care of that or not. And folks also emailed to suggest food processor and a retailer. I don't know. I heard Representative Blucher talk about limiting it to farmers, but I'm not sure. Maybe a processor works, and I'm not sure about retailers as well. And I know I had requested that the person with financial expertise, and I would also be interested in having someone with legal expertise available too, just because I think if we're trying to be creative and come up with solutions, it helps to have different kinds of people at the table. So I don't know what that would look like, but you know, some stakeholder with legal expertise as well. So if it's not the Attorney General, just some resource to be available at the table as we discuss all these really complicated issues.
Perhaps Representative, like several of the boards and stuff, maybe we could do the same thing here. And that is the Attorney General actually supplies one of the Assistant Attorney Generals to staff the advisory committee. You know,
Well,
like
I
I'm
think
thinking,
what like a legal resource would be different than, because some of the things I've been thinking about are like our finance, lending, risk assessment, insurance, like you know, potential plaintiff issue. Like there are so many parts to this, and I think that the AG's office doesn't necessarily represent those, but that's one thing I want to flag. And then before tomorrow, I think I'd want, you know, input from folks listening on it.
Yep. One of the things we have to be very careful of, I hear what you're saying with the ones you listed, but if we actually took all those in, we've just doubled the size of this committee too. And I don't know how many we want on here for the advisory committee, but I think once you get up, I mean, we're already at, what is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's probably 10 or 11 people right there now. And then if we add, you know, the 6 or 7 that you suggested, we're getting into an awful unwieldy, I think, advisory committee. So we're going to have to be very careful as we craft this to, you know, what exactly is the makeup of this committee. Not to say that they can't pull other people in or subcommittees or whatever it may be, but and maybe we work that in, that, you know, people can be asked to join as needed on certain issues. I don't know, something to that effect, but that would just be my word of caution. So
Yeah, understood. Part of my thought process is just thinking about when you have a board overseeing something, you try to get a diverse group of perspectives, and very often on a board, you'll want a financial member and and somebody with a legal background too. So,
And we certainly have the financial member, and as I said, I thought we had the Attorney General on there to begin with, so.
Yeah.
All right, let's, I'll ask for some more. Representative Pluker, did you want to respond to that before I move on to the other questions?
Yep, just a quick one. Not opposed to any of those ideas, except the intent of this board was that they are going to form subgroups and in working groups around issues like health, buyback programs, and those kinds of things.
Right. That was the discussion. That's what I was getting at. So, Representative McCray. Karen, do you want to speak on this before we go on to more questions?
Yeah, thank you. I just basically echoing what Representative Pluker just said. The lead in the paragraph 4, or the description of the advisory committee does say that they may form working groups to include and seek input from subject matter experts from the public and private sectors to deliberate issues relating to purposes of the fund, including but not limited to health monitoring, short-term financial aid for farmers, research priorities, solar siting, long-term environmental monitoring, and land acquisition. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you. Representative McCray.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. What I'm about to say, I was thinking before Representative O'Neill brought in her thoughts regarding additional members. And what I was looking at is if we move to 5 farmers, that brings it to an even number, and which means there's a definite possibility of a tie vote. And when committees, when advisory committees or any other committee, even this committee, when we come out with no definitive majority, the recommendations may have a lot of weight, but there was not a clear majority. So I guess what I would suggest is either I like the idea of having an increased number of farmers, but moving it to 5 makes it half farmers and half non-farmers. So maybe dropping back by 1 farmer, or increasing by 1 farmer, or picking up one or more of the suggestions from Representative O'Neill would be a good idea. Just, from
Sure.
that, that's it. That's all.
Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to commend Representative Pluker for his hard work on this and where he's got this too. I think that we need to be careful that we don't make this group, this advisory committee, too big. I agree with Representative McCray that I would like to see 11 or 9. I don't think we want to get it any bigger. I'd be opposed to adding, all those other people that Representative O'Neill just said, because I've been on some of these legislative study groups and committees before, and they get unwieldy when you get 17, 19 people on them. It's just too big. This advisory group would be able to pull in anybody that they needed. They have access, the commissioners have access to legal, financial, all kinds of state resources. So I don't think that those people need to stay beyond that advisory committee. I think we need the farmers and the commissioners on there. And I would disagree with Representative Underwood. I don't believe that we want the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, appointing those people, because then it becomes a political issue, and we want to keep this as non-political as we can and take care of the farmers that we, the boots on the ground. And so I think Representative Pluker has done an excellent job and spent some time on this, and I like the direction he's going. I just would caution us to keep the working group, the advisory group, small. And as Representative McCray said, I would like to see it on uneven number. I think the commissioners need to be on there, and their appointees. They know who will be affected, and they have the inside scoop on what is going on. I think the way that this is written up is fine.
Representative Bernard.
Yes, thank you very much. I was wondering for the financial representative, and now for some reason I can't see it on the screen here. If that financial representative might be someone with thank you. Might be someone with an agricultural lending experience, because I know that that's almost a specialty. And so I wonder, this is a wonder, not a, I'm not making a thought for a friendly amendment as yet, but just wanted to discuss whether or not it would be a good idea to have that financial industry person have expertise in agricultural lending.
I would say that at least the point has been made, Representative. So some of these where, like on this particular one, we actually haven't said who is appointing that person. It's pretty obvious on the first ones where it's the commissioners and the designee who's appointing the one who now is appointing. We don't say who's appointing this person. So I'm not sure where this person comes from. So when we circle back to who appoints that, we can have that discussion again about agricultural person. Representative Schofield.
Thank you, Senator Dill. I just want to say that Senator Black expressed my views almost 100% completely, that we need to keep this limited, and that I also want to thank Representative Fluker for his work. So what Representative Black, what Senator Black just said, I would like to echo that completely. Thank you.
Representative Hall.
Yeah, thank you very much, Senator Dill. Actually, Representative Schofield just said exactly what I wanted to say. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Senator Maxman.
Thank you, Senator Dill. I was also going to say I agree with everything that Senator Black said. I also, one other thing while we're talking about the committee is that it says the committee shall hold public hearings at least annually on their efforts. That doesn't seem like enough to me. I think at least twice a year, if not more. And I imagine that the stakeholder groups would be, or the subcommittees would be seeking public input more regularly as well. But I just wanted to put a plug for more public input onto the committee.
Great, thank you. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was another thing I had flagged about public process, and I wondered what's written in here now and what's available to put in, because I think something like notice and comment is too complicated, but we do want to be sure that we establish that we have some kind of public process to get input. These are all things I would like to have written in there just so that it can be clear for everybody.
Where would that go, Representative? Where do you envision?
I'm not sure. It's more of a question for Karen, and maybe she can't answer now, but I haven't had a lot of time to review this just because of the time frame. So I just would want input around how we could build that in, because it gets back to my concern about just wanting to have clear definition in there about what to expect.
Karen?
Yeah, so I think, one way to address that is, as Senator Maxman just suggested. I mean, you could at least require them to meet at least twice a year. But, I was looking at the Lead Poisoning Prevention Fund, and it's one page. And I think I realized, we want, it sounds like the committee wants as much detail as possible, but, I also caution the committee against getting into the weeds here, and kind of tripping on those weeds. I don't think, I think if you direct the advisory committee to meet, that there is that statutory requirement, and then there's a report back so that they're held accountable, that they've done the work, and then you can kind of take it from there. Those are my thoughts at this time.
Karen, on those, did I hear it say public meetings? Was that what it said? Was
Yes,
it
public hearings.
a public hearing? So if we move that to 2 public hearings a year, that certainly doesn't exclude them from meeting as many times as they need to as a group, right? But
It says at least, yes. yeah.
right. Does that say though, then if we said that at least 2 public hearings a year, does that mean that I assume all of their hearings would be public anyway, no matter what. So they can't hold these in secret, I guess is what I'm saying. They're always going to be a public meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, public means.
Right. So we could change that to at least 2 public meetings a year.
Yes.
And that would cover what Senator Maxman said.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's getting to what Representative O'Neill wants too. Representative O'Neill, does that do what you wanted?
So I think I need a little more information, and maybe this is something that I can discuss with Representative Pucher in between today and tomorrow. But just to understand what the advisory board will do and how it works, because what I want to see is public access to it, and I'd like more folks to be involved in the process, I think, than others have expressed. And if those meetings are not public and you have to be appointed or invited to be there, I just think it's important that we have a clear public process in place so that people can participate.
Okay. All right, can you go back to that, Karen, please? All right, so we're kind of hearing, I'm hearing, let me just put it this way, that we ought to change up what at least here is listed as FE, but we can change the lettering, of Karen can. We're going to, appears that we want to change those 2 members to some other number. And so what I'm hearing, to keep, unless there's anything else that we need to add to this, that either needs to be 4 or 6. And that keeps it at 9 or puts it up to 11. So I guess I would ask for some input. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think making it 5 agricultural members is important. I would suggest, if we want to round the number or make it an odd number, that we also add a public member who isn't a farmer to reflect community needs in impacted areas, just because we know the breadth and the impact.
Okay. Other thoughts on adding a public member?
I'm in favor.
Representative McCray?
Yeah, I think that's a fine idea. Just, I think if we were to add 1, I think that's a good avenue to go, and it does bring us to an odd number. Thank you.
Anyone object to that? That puts us at 11. All right. So we'll do that. So that will be added, Karen. We'll go to 5 members of agricultural sector and 1 community member. And let's go down to G. Who's going to appoint G? Anybody got any thoughts on that? Representative O'Neill, is your hand up? Whoops.
Oh, sorry, that was left. But I did like Representative Bernard's suggestion.
But still, we got to have somebody appoint that, even if it's an agricultural person. Someone has to appoint that. How does that person get? I see Director McGrady.
I just wanted to mention that we have talked internally about what Representative Bernard had mentioned, an agricultural lender. Financial acumen in that sector is very important. So if it were to be a commissioner appointment, we very much want to be in that same vein of looking for someone with an established track record of agricultural financial support. Farm Credit East, there are plenty of other banks in the state of Maine with that too. So we would keep that very much in mind.
Would this be something that FAME could appoint? Finance Authority of Maine? I mean, doesn't have to be from there, but I'm just looking for someone, I mean, I'm fine if it's the commissioner, if it's going to be an agricultural lender, that maybe it goes back to the commissioner of staff, so. Representative Osher.
Yes, I agree that that this wording should be changed to say main financial industry with agricultural expertise, with expertise in agricultural finance and lending. And I was actually going to say that I thought that this would be something, if we put that descriptor, that the Commissioner of Agriculture could be the person who nominates.
Senator Black.
I am fine with the agricultural. I think that's probably a good idea, and I have no problem with the commissioner appointment.
Okay. Senator Bernard, I mean Representative Bernard. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to agree with Representative Osher and say that I think the Commissioner of Agriculture would probably be the best person in this case to name someone with that expertise. So thank you for bringing that up, Representative.
All right. So are we content now with what we have picked for an advisory committee? All right. Karen, can you go, Representative McCray?
That on that membership of the committee, and we seem to be spending a lot of time on that, but under 1A, it just says the commissioner or the commissioner's designee. Should we be more specific?
Yeah, that needs to say DACF, right?
There it is.
Just drafting rules of construction, it's in Title 7, so by default, it's the Commissioner of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry. That's why it's drafted.
Just caught that on the way by. Thank you.
All right, Karen, can you go back to the top of this, please?
Are we leaving the committee? I mean, are we leaving this part of the bill? Because I just want to make sure.
I'm just asking it. That's what I just said. Is everybody content with this? And I didn't hear anybody jump in and say they wanted something else added. And we did say that a minimum of 2 public hearings a year.
Okay. Yeah.
Representative Pluker.
And I think just with the clarification, I don't know if it's needed in statute, but all the meetings themselves are public.
Right. Okay. Is everybody okay with this part of it, the advisory committee? Karen, can you go to the top, please? All right.
Well, the very top is emergency preamble.
Yep.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that everybody's okay. If there's something here as we go through, you want to see a quick change or you have a question, let's go for it now. So the next thing down was agricultural enterprise under 1B. Is that correct, Representative Pluker? Or Karen, one or the other?
I believe the term of art is commercial farm, per the suggestion of Maine Farmland Trust, MOFGA, Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy, and Defend Our Health.
So commercial farm, everybody okay with that? All right, Karen, can you make that change?
Yeah, and also deleting the term the definition of biosolids and just referring to sludge and septic. Septage, sorry.
I believe is the term.
Yeah.
All right, anything else under here? Okay, we're down to D, 4D. The changes that are in yellow, is everybody okay with that? E, same thing. Representative Pluker.
Thank you. There was in the amendment from IATP, there was a restatement around the purposes in the lead-in sentence.
All right, let's go up to lead-in sentence purposes. Yep.
Do you have that, Karen, or should I?
No, I don't recall that, but
Okay.
I'll look at their draft right now. There's no change, I don't think.
It was basically including the priorities of section 5 and in the lead-in sentence. So allocation of the fund
yeah.
may be made for the following purposes as determined by the department upon recommendation of the advisory committee, or to meet the requirements of paragraph 5. Oh, I'm sorry. So
It's already there. Yeah.
It's already there. I'm getting turned around. Too many product. Thanks you.
All right.
Okay.
Karen, were you going to say something?
Yeah, so that is in their amendment. It's odd to me because subsection 4 is the purposes of the fund. Subsection 5 is about the administration. Then there's the language that was suggested by some of the interested parties gets into short-term sort of purposes of the fund. So I don't think that belongs in subsection 5. And to be honest, I think that should probably be unallocated because it is short-term and limited duration. So really it's about short-term goals, and I think there are elements of that short-term goals that could be in the overall purposes of the fund in section 4, but I wouldn't put that in administration of the fund. That's really about the purposes of the fund.
And I'm going to comment unless somebody cuts me off.
Go ahead.
We wanted to be clear because I think we also heard the comment from the department that the allocations for the administration, they can tap this money for administration. And so making it clear that they have access to this fund for administration. So for example, hiring of positions and filling AWAC. No, I have AWAC in my head, and filling the advisory committee and those kinds of things. So that's the intent. I don't know how to do that legally.
Yeah, I think it will need, the intent is there on paper. I think it may be moved around a little bit to work better mechanically. But we can figure that out off mic.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, continue down through 4. 4D, I didn't hear any concerns. How about 4? Yep, Representative Pluker.
I was just going to flag that we have agricultural enterprise in D.
Oh yeah,
there.
good point.
Anywhere where agricultural enterprise is
Yep. So it'd be in D and E. So yep.
Yeah, and I had started to put together a draft for Representative Pluker that incorporated MOFGA, Maine Farmland Trust's amendment. And so I have a version started that uses commercial farm rather than agricultural enterprise, and also refers to sludge and septage. So
yep. So that will all change. Okay. Good.
it will.
All right. Next one where there's a correction is K, which looks like an addition. Concerns about K. Director McBrady.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Actually, this doesn't pertain to the K that's highlighted. If I may, I just wanted to flag something that we would like the committee to consider relative to I. That's okay.
Sure.
So this is an establishment of a policy here, as opposed to activities relating to farm response, and it's establishing food safety criteria relative to the 20 parts per trillion sum of 6 PFAS. I would caution that this is not necessary to list here, nor to establish. I'm going to channel Dr. Smith now, so imagine the mustache. but the CDC is working very, very hard to update action thresholds right now using more sensitive and aggressive standards, toxicological standards that have been set by the Agency of Toxic Substances, and I'm going to forget the acronym, ASTDR. So they're already doing that. They have publicly commented about that in its presentations. So setting farm product guidance to the sum of 6 PFAS for drinking water standards is actually not the direction in which they're going, because they're using different standards, again, much more aggressive. And so I just think that putting this here is contrary to what is happening at present, and therefore it's not necessary. And Dr. Smith is able to come in and speak to this if that would be helpful. And just another point, dropping down to the final K, assessing.
Before we leave that one, Nancy, would it make sense if we just said something like establishing food safety criteria and guidance for farm products based on the states, based on CDC's safety criteria or something like that? Because if it's going to move, I mean, we could put this in law this year, and next year it's going to change.
The science will always be changing, and CDC
that's what
is
I'm
very
saying.
much is paying attention to that. You know, I will just say they're interviewing toxicologists. They're going to be increasing their staff. They're going to be able to devote more time to action thresholds in the coming months to set that up and get that out there. We know that the farming community needs to have standards to look to. We need them to look to in order to give advice as to what is and is not safe to produce and to consume. I just don't know if that needs to be within the fund. They're doing it anyway. It's their obligation. We have to do it.
I see what you're saying. So don't spend the money on it if it's already being done someplace else. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Okay.
Yes.
Representative Pluker.
Yeah, and I would emphasize this is all may language, not shall language around this. And what I would say is for just establishing food safety criteria and guidance for farm products, period.
Great.
And yeah.
Any other concerns with that, anyone? If we just put the period after farm products?
And
yep, go ahead, Bill. And I got to go back to Nancy because she wanted to say something about I think, or I mean, K. So
okay,
go ahead.
Am I
I have a
muted?
comment on G when we get there.
I interrupted you before you left I. So
Sure. I was just going to point out Title 38, Section 1614, I believe, is where DEP by 2030 is going to be looking at all of the uses of PFAS and whether or not they've been intentionally added. I understand, Representative Pluker, this is a may relative to assessing current uses of PFAS, but just wanted to underscore that that is being looked at by the Department of Environmental Protection.
is that under 15? Is that under 1503 anyway?
Yes.
Yeah. So we already have a law that addresses this, so we can just strike that one completely.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
Senator Dill,
Yes.
if I may, in the amendment from AFCA, Maine Farmland Trust, they struck in the original bill, assessing current uses of PFAS is paragraph K, and their suggestion was to strike it.
Yes, that's what we just said. Yep.
Yes, so I just wanted to.
Okay.
Okay.
To reinforce that, I hear you.
Yes. But it appears here. That's why it's very confusing.
No,
and if
no.
I actually draft this correctly, then it's a miracle. But it will be reviewed
problem.
by folks tonight.
That's why we're going through this.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Anything after that? Down to N. Go ahead, Representative Pluker.
Sorry, I'm still on G. To be clear, that assessing food safety, I wanted to strike that. G.
Assessing, hold it, assessing current uses of PFAS, that's K.
Yeah,
on
that,
this one.
Yeah, K.
That's gone. That K is gone. The other K is there.
And then going to G.
All right.
Yep. So evaluating the capacity of PFAS testing and data management in the state, I think, is the core of what G is trying to do. And we're not doing an evaluation of capacity of conducting research and capacity for statewide testing, I think is not as necessary.
Senator Dill.
Yes.
So again, some of the advocates, MAFCA, Maine Farmland Trust, that was how they amended that paragraph, evaluating the capacity of PFAS testing and data management in the state. And I think that's what Representative Fluker just said.
Okay, so it was taken out such as establishing state testing laboratories.
Correct.
And it says evaluating the capacity. Say that again.
So it's evaluating the capacity of PFAS testing and data management in the state.
Okay. Let's go with that. I don't see any objections. And again, we're going to have to go through language review tomorrow. So. I would ask the question of Director McBrady or the commissioner. I know somewhere out there in some of the departments, and I think in the information you gave us on all the different PFASs, there is capacity out there to establish some labs in the state. Do you remember what the amount was? Was that 3 million, or does anybody know? And I don't know where that's necessarily going to. Is that going to the dairy lab that you have? Is that a private lab? Is that going up to the chemical engineering lab at the university? I know there are several labs in the state that now are interested in PFAS testing. So I don't know. I thought there was some amount that actually specifically said an amount for establishing laboratories in the state, because we know that at least from the work that we do here, some of the PFAS testing equipment is, $450,000 for one piece of equipment. So, $3 million doesn't go very far if you want to have 4 or 5 of those pieces of equipment in the state.
Yeah. And, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Neither one of them have answered yet, but I thought I remembered somewhere that there was some funds for establishing laboratories.
I'm going to defer to Commissioner Beal. I think she knows that detail.
I think she's looking for it.
Correct. I'm looking for it. It's on that, as I said, the 2-pager, I think, that came with the first packet of information, follow-up information. So I'm trying to pull that up right now. But
I think I remember seeing it someplace. So
yeah, I'll keep looking. And
yeah, okay, we can come back to it. I just am concerned. I understand that maybe we don't want to use some of these funds to establish laboratories, but it only does say such as, and that's kind of a wishy-washy way of saying it. So if we left that, if there's not enough funds to do what we need to do, it would be nice that we just kind of left that part of it there, is my thoughts on this. Yes, go ahead, Representative Fluker.
Thank you. I'm trying to be correct.
No, I understand. That's very thoughtful. Go ahead.
It's between $3 and $4 million. I thought it was in the DEP budget, but I'm just being corrected by my phone now that it's not in the DEP budget. It's somewhere else. So we've got to find it.
Okay, we'll come back to that. G. All right, let's go down to N. Anybody have a problem with N? O. And I include both the director and commissioner, because this is kind of steering you guys in different directions. So if you have a comment on any of these, just let me know as we go through. All right, down to administration. Karen, if you can scroll up a little bit.
So this is the part where I would suggest paring down to whatever the department needs to administer the funds, and incorporate maybe some language that Amy Carlton suggested at the get-go about non-lapsing. And I think the other stuff would be in unallocated language. It's kind of like a something it was in the budget about transfer from the department to the PFAS reserve fund, but all of this stuff about immediate assistance, March of 2023, I feel like that should be an unallocated because it's limited in duration. But I haven't had an opportunity to look at the income replacement, farm assistance, medical monitoring. I think those sentiments might need to be incorporated in 4 about the purposes of the fund, but you could still retain most of this language in an unallocated section to say, okay, these are the immediate needs, and prioritize the funding and report back in March, date certain of 2023. So this to me needs a drafting overhaul, but the substance is there.
All right, so we'll just have you put that in unallocated language and we'll look at it tomorrow. Representative Pluker.
Yeah, I'm fine with it going to unallocated language. I do think that we need to move the medical monitoring up into section 4 because that needs to be in statute, not in the main revised statutes published as opposed to unallocated language. I think income replacement and I don't know, that's also not mentioned in section 4, I don't believe. So some of this needs to go up to the purposes.
That's what I haven't had an opportunity to kind of compare to make sure that those sentiments are captured in the purposes in the statute. So that's what we need to work on.
Great. And then the other part around administration, I just want to get the department's raised multiple times that they really want it to be that there have been problems in some of the other funds around them having access to the funds when they need the funds. So making it clear that we do authorize them to hire positions in order to, bring the committee together and get the program. Because the first step before any of this is finding somebody to do the work. And so I just want to make that clear that they can use this money to fund those positions for the administration. And then the other comment I think we also heard from the commissioner, which probably would go in this area around any funds that are recovered through litigation and whether they would go directly into this fund or if they would go to compensate the general fund for its expenditure.
Yeah, a couple things on that. I guess I would go to Karen here too, because certainly anything we capture, I'm not sure what the life of this is. I understand that this part of it will go into statute, but the money could be long gone in 3 years. My guess is anything that's captured in litigation will be 20 years from now, if we're lucky. So I guess my question would be, do we say this go, and this is just a general question, does it go back into the general fund? Because this particular fund may or may not exist by the time they get any litigation. Even though I guess if we establish it now, it always sits there, even though it sits there empty. So I'd go and ask the commissioner, what do you think is the best way to say that, Commissioner? Is it go to the general fund or to replenish this fund?
I don't have an opinion on that. I mean, I really just raised it as something for you all to be thinking about if that was important to you. But I will tell you, I did find the answer to the previous question about testing and how much is being.
Okay, great.
You want to know that now?
Yes.
I can tell you.
Yep.
Okay. Let me pull that back up. So in the supplemental budget request, the current supplemental budget request, DEP is requesting $3.2 million for laboratory capital investments, and $1 million is also being requested for the state health and environmental testing laboratory. And in addition, there's a request for testing equipment and 3 positions equivalent to about $600,000. So that's the totality of what's being requested to put toward increasing testing capacity in the state.
Okay, so that's somewhere around 4 million, and that's going all to DEP, and the testing is all at the DEP.
Well, I think there are two things happening here. I think there's the state lab that is requesting additional capacity, and then DEP is going to be working with some private labs to help them also stand up the ability to do testing.
All right, because I was also under the impression, not that I'm condoning or condemning either way, that there was someone over in chemical engineering that's doing some of the PFAS testing and was hoping, I think, to get some more funding too to increase their capacity. But
yeah, I don't know the details of that.
I don't either.
I have not become an expert on other agencies' budget requests.
and I have heard from some private labs too that said, hey, you know, and so I don't know if they're the ones that DEP are working with or not. So, Representative Gifford.
Thank you, Senator. Good discussion. But I do think we need to have a dedicated fund for this. If you put it in the general fund, they get lost all in the weeds. And I think you really have to have a dedicated fund for this because I do think this is a problem that's not going to go away right off quick. And so you need a dedicated fund for it. Thank you.
Thank you. So therefore, we are establishing a fund here, and even though it may remain empty for 5 or 10 years, and all of a sudden we do get some litigation funds back, you would be advocating to put it back into that fund rather than having it go into the general fund? Is that what I'm hearing from you, Representative?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Representative Pluker.
Sorry, should have taken my hand down.
Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo what Representative Gifford said. I would agree with that. And also, I had a question for Karen. If she could talk through now or bring back information tomorrow about, I would just want to make sure that this fund stays dedicated to PFAS and these purposes, and that it can't be, just taken out and put in the general fund or used for other things.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole intent of this bill, is to establish a fund that must be used for specific purposes. And I guess I would go back to Representative Pluker's request to the department, Amy Carlton, to if, I'm not an expert in fiscal matters, so whatever they need to set up a dedicated non-lapsing fund, if you could forward that language to me, that would be wonderful. But I would like to, try to get the committee amendment right off out of the gate. However, I'm sure once it goes to OFPR, it will be made right. But this isn't, this is important stuff. So if they could send me language, that would be wonderful.
Okay. So what else is there under administration? Is a lot of this stuff, the ABC 1, 2, 3, or whatever, that's all going and unallocated? Did I hear you say, Karen, or other sections?
It's kind of, sort of. So I yes, but I think I also need to work with Representative Pluker on making sure that the main principal long-standing purposes of the fund capture some of these immediate needs. So we just want to make sure section 4 about purposes, that some of these very important sentiments are captured in there and not lost in unallocated law. So,
okay. Thank you. All right, formation of long-term plan for the administration of funds.
Oh, Representative Pluker has his hand up.
Yep, go ahead, Representative Pluker.
That time I meant my hand. I'm looking at the language, and it's very, or the medical language that we're looking at, and it's very focused on monitoring.
Yep.
And I think there's going to be folks who are going to go beyond monitoring. They're going to have clear issues. And so I think as we move some of these points around medical and healthcare into the purposes, I think we should broaden it a little bit and make it clear that as recommended by AWAC, because we want to make sure that I keep saying AWAC, but the advisory committee, as it that there can be more help for those farmers who are recognize the issues they're having as a result of the PFAS, and they can get some support from the state for their health bills and their medical bills.
You can call it AC. How's that? And maybe that will get you away from AWAC.
Yeah.
All right. What about the long-term plan? Everybody okay with those? All right, down to 6, rules. Kind of standard boiler. What? Go ahead,
Senator
Karen.
Dill, yeah, so on these, it's a formation of a long-term plan. So to me, again, this strikes me as a point in time where they're developing a plan. This strikes me as something that might go in an unallocated vision to provide direction to the department on what the long-term plan might be.
Okay. All right. We've gone through the advisory committee. Report backs. Again, a date certain on March of 2023. What do we want for a date? March 15th? Is that okay, or whatever the? Or do you want March 1st? Anybody got an opinion?
March 1.
March 1.
I was gonna say earlier is better because then it gives us time to act on anything.
Good point. That's part of the reason why I wanted a date certain, because otherwise we could have got it on March 31st. And all right, and the rest of that okay on that sentence, that paragraph. Okay.
So moved. Just kidding.
Move it in. Section 34, this is where Amy had said that it shouldn't be Bureau of Agriculture. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's section 4 of the bill, I think.
Yep. So this would be Commissioner's office. Is that
It would be the office of the commissioner.
Yeah.
I don't know if the initiative description needs to be changed, but it sounds like there's corresponding language. I printed out part Q from the budget bill that talks about the transfer. So yeah, whatever the department can provide on that front, I would appreciate. I'm not an expert on appropriations and allocations language.
Right. And then the summary just has to be
updated
to reflect the changes.
Yeah.
All right. We've made it through. So we have a product, LD 2013 as amended.
To Commissioner
Beal.
Sorry to ask to go backward.
problem.
I just want 2 things that have occurred to me since we were talking about the makeup of the section on the committee.
Yep.
Did it specify terms for
No,
those?
you're absolutely
appointments?
right. I did bring that up and we didn't do it. So
Okay.
no, we did
So
not.
that might be important. And
Yep.
and the one other thing I would love to hear a little bit more to make sure that I understand and that Nancy understands and we all understand the same thing. So the difference between a public hearing and the meetings being open to the public, and I would imagine having some kind of opportunity within those meetings for public feedback. What is it specifically that a public hearing, what is the desired outcome of that would be different from having the meetings be open to the public with opportunities for feedback along the way?
Representative O'Neill, do you have a weigh in on that one? Because I know you were one that was kind of talking about that. Open meetings.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I did not. I guess I would want to talk more to the folks that have done this great work to put it together to see what was envisioned. What I was thinking is that just that it's really important to formalize that folks would be able to come and participate when they'd like to, and that we had some kind of structure that made meetings open, like maybe, I don't, I'd want to talk through, do you feel that all meetings could be public? Would it be necessary to have some meetings that weren't public? But I just like the idea of having a city council style meeting where folks can come and participate if they'd like to at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I mean, I think, of course, within meetings that are public, there might need to be, some sort of executive session if there's discussion about proprietary private information about businesses. But yeah, just feedback on that to make sure that we're clear. That would be helpful.
Yeah, because all these meetings would have to be open. You can't hold them in secrecy anyway. So, except like you said, executive session.
Good. Yeah, that's my question. Is just I don't know the rules or what the default is and stuff like that. So.
Senator Maxman.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Representative O'Neill said, as I was imagining at least 2 times a year where the public could give direct comment and input on what was happening. And then the other meetings, would be like our work sessions where people can listen in and know what's going on, but don't necessarily have the opportunity to weigh in. And I think there probably will be need for executive sessions and more private conversations. So yes, that's that.
Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this is my organizational nuts and bolts day. I think we do need to specify terms, but if this is an 11-member board, we certainly don't want all 11 members, their membership expiring on the same date. So perhaps some sort of a vehicle with staggered terms being set up in the initial phase.
Yep.
Because this committee is going to go on for quite some time, I suspect.
Right. I would expect something like Representative McCray, 2, 3, and 4 year appointments initially, and then I'll go to 3 years thereafter or something, and they could be reappointed.
Yep, that's exactly. It had to be handled now.
Yep, no, but I agree. It has to be done today, certainly. So Karen, do you want to scroll up to that?
So you just, what sounds like an amendment that's developing here, staggered terms, and however, maybe 3-year terms eventually, but however it needs to be worded to kind of make sure they're staggered initially.
Right. I guess maybe you could just list them all right out. Like we often do, that they've got seat 1, seat 2, seat 3. So when you get down to the 5 members of the agricultural, you list 5, because we don't want those 5 all going out in the same year either. So, maybe you just go something like 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and then at the end of the term, they can be reappointed, and everybody then serves a 3-year term, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Representative Hall.
Yeah, Senator Dill, wouldn't like the commissioner and the commissioner of environmental protection and stuff, those could change according to who's in that job description. Is that correct?
That's very true. So maybe those are just permanent positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be my feeling.
Right.
So really, it's just the what are we at? 5 members from the agricultural
and the
community, and then
the community person.
Yeah, the representative from the main financial industry, and then so it's just those 7 positions that would need staggered terms.
Right. And same thing would be with the deans. The deans could change. So
right. So they'll be
they yep. All right. Any other things? Commissioner, was another thing that you said besides the terms?
No, I'm all set. Yeah, we covered it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was about the distinction between public hearing, public meeting, what
right.
the expectation is, and I'll look into that as well. Hearing definitely has a different connotation than just a meeting.
For sure.
So I suggest, since we made so many changes, that maybe we want to delay our vote until tomorrow after she actually brings back the language review. Karen, what do you think on that?
Yeah, that's fine, however you want to do it.
Yeah, let's do that, because I think there's some major changes. I mean, there are major changes here, and some people saw this for the first time, of course, this morning. So I think we'll go ahead and plan on when we meet tomorrow. And we can, again, 9 a.m. Is that going to be okay with everybody? Dave McCray, you're the only one that's bouncing back and forth, probably.
Well, I can stay put at least for a while there. I may have to just listen in on my way north.
Okay. So anyway, so do we just table this till tomorrow? Are we done with it for today? Can I have a motion to table?
I'll move we table, Senator.
Been moved by Representative Schofield, seconded by Representative McCray. Okay. It's been tabled until Thursday. And we'll move on to LD 2019, an act to require the registration of adjuvants in the state to regulate the distribution of pesticides with PFAS and PFOS substances. Karen, would you bring us up to speed, please?
Okay. Oops, some weird echo. So this is another committee bill. I'll just go through what the original bill does. So section 1 defines PFAS as substances that include any member of the class of fluorinated organic chemicals containing at least 2 fully fluorinated carbon atoms, which is different than other places in the main revised statutes. And then section 2, paragraphs A and B under that section are current law. It includes, and then what the bill does is it adds that paragraph C. That pesticide means, in addition to paragraphs A and B, paragraph C, which is any substance or mixture of substances intended to be used as a spray adjuvant. The board in their testimony pointed out that I think something that was inadvertently left out in the committee bill draft should probably be put back in, and that is that pesticide includes highly toxic pesticide. So I think that was just a drafting error on my part. That's in the current law and probably should be put back. And then section 3 defines spray adjuvant. Again, I'm not the subject matter expert. I didn't get feedback on this. So one suggestion would be to use, I guess this definition in the committee bill is overly broad. So the board had suggested using, I guess the state of Kentucky has a definition of this that is more targeted. And then section 4 is where it prohibits a person may not distribute in the state beginning January 1st, 2030, a pesticide that contains intentionally added PFAS. So because the definition in the original bill is 2 fully fluorinated carbon atoms, and that law in Title 38 LD 1503, the definition is 1 carbon atom. You had to not withstand Title 38 and provide that the prohibition is intentionally added PFAS, which is 2 carbon atoms. Sort of getting in the weeds here, but and then section 5 says a person may not use or cause to be used any pesticide container inconsistent with rules for pesticide containers adopted by the board. And then section 6 gives the board authority to adopt rules regulating pesticide containers. It is somewhat vague, but that's the way it's drafted. And then that's essentially it. I know Representative Kluger had asked me to draft an amendment for him, so I don't know if he wants to present that now. But I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah, before we get to that, other questions? Representative Pluker.
Yeah, no question. I was ready to.
Ready to
present.
go? Okay. Are there any questions for Karen till? Okay, go ahead, Representative Pluker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Karen, do you have some text we can share on that?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now, and I can share the screen, and I can go through it, or if you want to go through it, either way.
Oh, sorry, technical issues here. There we go. So I'll start off with just an introduction. You know, the core of what I think I was hearing from folks is, one, we want to stay in line with current law as it came out of 1503 from DP. So in line with current law around timelines. We want to make sure there's plenty of time to get this right and do it over time. We don't want to see prohibitions coming down the track immediately. Two, we don't want to have like mandates coming from the legislature to the executive branch, to DACF, telling them what they want to do. So this is my attempt at a draft to do just that. We are in the first section there, we're maintaining the same definition through all of state law. As we heard yesterday in testimony, it is it's already in multiple different places in DHHS law, DEP law, and it should be the same here in DACF law. Two, this just gives the ability to regulate spray adjuvants to the BPC. We're not telling them how they have to regulate them or anything like that, but they may regulate them. And then the other opportunity is on containers. They have the authority to regulate containers. We're not telling them how to regulate containers. The idea is that the science is still evolving. Coming from the EPA, they're doing their studies. We're not going to put it in law how it's to be done. They have the power when and if they decide to do so, you know, especially as they're hearing back from the EPA. Same on the adjuvants. So that this is really transferring authority, not just transferring, but is giving authority to the BPC to take action if they wish, but there is no mandate coming from the legislature. Now, we are going to maintain the same definition on PFAS, and I want to, and I don't, in the original bill, we not withstood what was already in DP, what was LD 1503. I don't want to not withstand that, so that we're applying that same timeline, that these products can be regulated by BPC before 2030, and they will be regulated by BPC after 2030. With the one caveat that we were talking about, the 2 fluorinated carbons versus the 1 fluorinated carbon. Those 2 fluorinated carbon atoms, which in the BPC testimony and the report back from 264, and I don't know if they had a full chance to survey all of the items yet, but it appeared that there were only 3 substances that were regulated currently, that are registered by the BPC currently, that would prohibit. So we would prohibit those substances in the near term, with all the rest of the regulation happening on the same timeline that is already in statute, and they would happen. So I attempted, you know, we heard a lot of testimony yesterday on this bill. People were really worried about where it was going and where it was coming from. I'm trying to alleviate a lot of those issues by saying that we're not mandating when it comes to how the adjuvants will be regulated. We're not mandating how the containers will be regulated. We do want the most toxic PFASs off the shelves now, but the other ones, the thousands that we don't know about, where the science is still evolving, we're going to give that time to 2030, just as would normally be done with by DEP. But this means that the BPC can do the same action that the DEP is currently authorized to do in law. And that is the end of my presentation.
Linda, would you let in Megan Pattison, please? Karen, I have a question.
So just to, I guess, rephrase what Representative Pluker just said, there's really only two changes in the original bill. The first is in section 1, where the definition of PFAS goes from 2 fully fluoridated carbon atoms to 1, which is in line with Title 32 and 38, et cetera. And then because of that change in the definition, there's a change in section 4 that says beginning January 1st, 2030. So it's in line with that Title 38 law that was just implemented. A pesticide that contains intentionally added PFAS may not be sold or distributed, under Title 38, Section 1614, may not be distributed in the state. So this aligns with the 1503 law. And just also to make, just to remind the committee that in 1614, there is a process whereby the department, so there's this prohibition, but then there's kind of an allowance that, oh, now I can't find it, that, you know, there's this prohibition on intentionally added PFAS products, but there is kind of a little opening where unless the department has, and the department in this case is DEP, has determined by rule that the use of PFAS in the product is a currently unavoidable use, just to make you aware that there's that provision there. So I think Representative Pluker said he wants to authorize BPC to regulate the containers that all pesticides come in, including adjuvants. And because adjuvants are a subset of the definition of pesticide, that happens in the original bill, sections 5 and 6. And then it keeps adjuvants in the definition of pesticide, and make it, he wanted to make clear that the board can charge a registration fee for them. That's, in my view, happens in section 2, because adjuvants are now included in the definition of pesticide. And then he said he wanted to completely ban 2 fluorinated carbon PFAS, because the definition now is the lowest common denominator of 1. The ban is in section 4 of the bill, paragraph H. I'm done.
Welcome, Director Patterson.
Thank you. Good
One
morning.
of the things that you heard us dealing with was the 1 fluorinated carbon versus 2 fluorinated carbons.
Sure.
If we stick with the 1, as was suggested,
Mhm.
how many registered products in the state of Maine does that impact?
So we've made a really rudimentary pass at looking at chemical structures, but in that rudimentary pass, we've identified 1,500 pesticide products that would meet that definition.
And these
There
are
may be
some,
more.
yeah, and those are some fairly commonly used products. I mean, household
Yeah.
products, commercially used products. So
Yeah, so, you know, just 2 examples, fipronil, which is commonly used as a spot-on treatment for pets. All products containing fipronil would be prohibited from distribution, as would all products containing bifenthrin. Bifenthrin is commonly used for tick control. In fact, it's one of the most common pesticide products used for tick management in the state currently. So both of those would be prohibited, amongst others.
Sure, sure. All right. As far as the containers go, what do you envision, or how do you envision being able to deal with that, or you know, if this passed the way it was, is that, you know, is that going to be easy, difficult for the department? And what happens if you say, well, we don't want this container, does that pretty much maybe effectively ban that pesticide from the state if we're the only one that's doing that?
So I guess it depends on, right? So there's a lot that will have to happen between now and any sort of activity to regulate containers. We'll have to do rulemaking and so forth. So that ultimately that will be up to the board to make those rules, which of course is a public process. So, I mean, depending on where that goes, if for example, the board were to choose to prohibit fluorinated pesticide containers, maybe even just fluorinated HDP, which was in the original language of this bill. And I realize that's been struck and it's much more general now. That represents 20 to 30% of pesticide products, approximately, that are currently registered in the state of Maine. So it would depend on, how the board wanted to move ahead. I will say, I'm hoping that one piece of information that will be beneficial to the board is a study that EPA is about to wrap up. I believe it's either this month or next month, looking specifically at pesticide containers, fluorination practices. They're doing both rinsate studies and then longevity and sort of leachate studies into products to try to assess the likelihood of PFAS contamination resulting from that specific relationship between the container, the fluorination, and the pesticide products themselves. So hopefully that will be information that we can utilize to move ahead. And I suspect it's information EPA will also utilize to decide federal policy. So, the two may be happening in tandem.
Okay. Thank you. Can I ask you a couple other questions? Representative Pluker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was thinking, would it be helpful for the BPC to have the authority to regulate these things, not just DEP, as is current law?
I don't know. So DEP regulating them, of course, would regulate them across all products as opposed to just for pesticides. So I would say, we certainly know at this point that container fluorination packaging issues are somewhat, they're definitely broader than just our small niche of products. So, I think that they do a fine job at what they do. And I wouldn't even begin to criticize them and how they can execute their work. So I would say, certainly that could retain with them. I mean, the same somewhat true for the language related to, I guess it's section, forgive me, Karen, I believe they've changed, but is it section 4 still? And then I, so technically speaking, all of that, the regulation of pesticide products themselves definitely is covered by language that was 1503, that's now Title 38. So, I guess it depends on what the will of the committee is. If you want us to specifically be looking at these, essentially they are already really regulated under LD 1503 and down to one fully fluorinated carbon atom. Because of course that's what's in that definition is in that particular section of law.
Senator Black.
Sorry, that's a roundabout answer to your question. My apologies, Representative Pluker.
Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Megan, thank you for being here. This is way above my pay grade. I'm just a poor old farmer from Franklin County, but and organic at that. So, I'm hearing from a lot of farmers and agricultural people that this bill could put us where we're an outlier and going to make it very hard for us to maybe get some of the pesticides that we need to grow our crops and be competitive with the rest of the, whether it's potatoes, it's, out west, whether it's apples, it's New York and out west, who are still able to use these pesticides. Is this going to, and the containers, what containers can come in, is this going to put our farmers at a big disadvantage from what you're seeing with this?
So like I said, at least with the container piece, right, that's dependent upon rulemaking and how the board decides to proceed with that particular section of this new potential authority. But yeah, it certainly will change the landscape of the products that farmers have available to them for Mainers as opposed to other states. I haven't seen any language similar to this being enacted in other states. In fact, I can tell you I've been invited to give a lot of presentations on this legislation because other states are curious about what it is Maine is doing. So I will say, like I'd said before, specifically with the prohibition on distribution of pesticides containing at least one fully fluorinated carbon atom, that represents 1,500 products and 69 active ingredients. So active ingredients are the material within the pesticide that does the pesticidal thing, right? It's the insecticide, the fungicide. It manages the plant or the insect. And then with the container fluorination piece, again, this language is different. It's much more vague. So that will depend on how the board develops rule. But if we're talking about a prohibition of container fluorination, then it does represent, to my understanding from speaking with folks at the Agricultural Container Recycling Council, they're a national organization that works with agricultural producers to recycle it's a sort of a cradle to grave kind of a system. They recycle their plastics. That represents 20 to 30% of agricultural inputs. That's pesticides, fertilizers, and adjuvants, which are of course addressed in this bill. 20 to 30% of all of those products would be packaged typically in a fluorinated container. So it's a pretty substantial change in what they have access to, potentially.
So basically what you're saying is what I'm hearing on the ground, that this could cripple our and put our commercial farmers at a great disadvantage.
Well, so I think it will certainly change what they have access to. It would mean that they wouldn't have access to the same kinds of, certainly even with just the piece related to one fully fluorinated carbon atom and the formulation, that would certainly remove products from availability that they otherwise would have access to. And it sort of remains to be seen what will happen with the containers, right? Because we have to develop rules on that. So it's up to the board to decide how and if they want to proceed. Because it's very, very general.
One follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So it definitely is putting us ahead of the curve. Nobody else has gone this far. And we would be definitely an outlier in this area.
We certainly are doing something that's different than what other states are doing with this particular language. Yes, at the moment. And
thank you.
Who's to say they won't do something similar?
Representative McCray.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Megan, this is going to be completely directed at you, but I do want to give you credit for being very political in your last answer. That was very, very well constructed. Anyway, I do have a couple of questions. One, it's been a number of years since I've been involved with my uncle's farm and stuff like this. There used to be these chemicals that we called stickers that made chemicals stick to the plants so that they could. And then yesterday in testimony, we heard that somebody was actually using sugar to make things stick. So I assume I just immediately heard, sticker. They didn't use that term. Those are pretty much inert things, I understand, as I recall, or as I would assume. Aside from the containers, if those all had to be registered, would those inert ones, such as sugar, just be registered and it just no big deal? Or would they have to go through a great big registration process and chemical analysis? And they seem to be pretty simple to me.
Yeah, so I think, sugar it's an interesting one. I heard that comment too. I think Dave Bell saying, I think they're using it for spotted wing Drosophila to make the pesticide product more appealing to the pet. Dave Bell, please call and correct me if I am wrong about that. I'd love to be educated on that one. But yeah, I don't think so. I mean, typically what we would be talking about with adjuvants, which includes the spreader stickers, any kind of deflocculating agent. And Karen, I can follow up with you with a definition from Arkansas and Kentucky that includes all those little details. But I think typically they're more specifically labeled for that purpose as opposed to sugar, which is, is not specifically labeled for that purpose. I don't know that we would necessarily go after them. I did in my testimony say after, individuals using sugar as some sort of tank mix agent. I do think that is somewhat up to the board to decide, right, how they want to have us enforce things, because more or less this is being treated, adjuvants in this case are being treated like a pesticide. And so the board will have to decide whether or not they want all of the regulations that pertain to pesticides to apply to adjuvants, or they want us to have just a subset of regulations that pertain. And I can see, for example, making those sorts of clarifications to say, the product does not necessarily have to be labeled for the purpose of using it as a tank mix agent, as an adjuvant would be. But again, that would be up to the board to decide. And it's not entirely clear to me how, the states that are regulating adjuvants, we found a handful of them that were doing so, how exactly they're implementing their regulations. We were able to find, language that said, here's how we regulate these. But the implementation is a slightly different thing than exactly what the law necessarily says. It can be, much more evolved, or there could be policies that we missed. So it's a good question. Thank you for it. I think there's a lot of details that we'll still need to work out, I guess, is the gist of my answer.
Another question, Mr. Chair, or I can come back later.
Yep, no, go ahead. You get a follow-up.
The other one, yeah, Megan, you went through, as you were talking about the 1,500 products that had things that would be, let's just say, put in jeopardy, depending on how this bill goes.
Sure.
And you went through some examples, and the one that really made my ears perk up was the tick control chemicals. Could you speak to that a little bit, just in some detail?
Sure. So bifenthrin is the active ingredient that happens to be one fully fluorinated contain one fully fluorinated carbon atom. It's just it's a really common pesticide used around structures. It happens to, of course, we have tick issues here in Maine, and folks want to take action to manage those. So it tends to be applied through commercial application. So folks who are licensed to apply the product will do so, for a fee for individuals who are interested in hiring that service. But yeah, bifenthrin, it just happens to be the case that it has a fluorinated carbon atom on its molecular structure. So it's also used for other things. It's used for, structural, carpenter ant control, perimeter treatments to manage, I guess, silverfish or whatever it is that you might be having, issues with moving into a structure, with regard to insects. It's not every insect, but it's a broader range than just ticks that potentially could be controlled with it.
Thank you very much. Just one comment as I depart. I think Senator Black echoed my sentiments, even though I hadn't expressed them. I don't like the idea that we are going to forge into territory that the other 49 states are watching us to see what we're going to do to ourselves, in a sense. So I am reluctant to support jumping into too far. That's my comment. Thank you very much, Megan.
Representative Pluker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think a few points we need to clarify. This bill is not going to change the law on 1,500 products. The law is established on those 1,500 products. It is being monitored by the DEP. Any fear we have about this reducing our access to 1,500 products is completely misplaced. This will not affect what we were just talking about in terms of the tick control, the mosquito control that we all have come to love and depend upon. We have access to those even after this law is passed. I understand there is fear, but it is not based in fact, okay? We have heard from the report back from 264, from the Board of Pesticide Control, that at that time, I'm forgetting her name, our toxicologist.
Amber.
Thank you. Said that this would, to her quick look at things, this would affect 3 products. And she said they were not regularly used and they weren't coming to her mind at the top of her mind. So this bill has been completely amended and scaled back to not affect 1,500 products, okay? Currently, those 1,500 products do follow under the regulation, the authority of the DEP to end their non-essential use by 2030. This bill gives the opportunity to BPC, because I believe that BPC knows more about pesticides than the DEP, to also look at the issue and regulate them as they see fit. This bill does not mandate the end of any usage of any product, except for those ones that we're looking at with the 2 fluorinated carbons, which are those 3 products that we heard from the BPC category. It looks, Megan, maybe there might be more than 3.
There's 6. Yeah, sorry, we've found more since then, but yeah.
Thank you very much.
Apologies. Yeah.
So we're looking at 6 products, and it is completely appropriate for this committee to question Director Patterson about what those 6 products are. I do not know what they are, but the idea that I understand I'm sorry, I'm a bit impassioned. We have heard so much testimony from farmers whose families and bodies, land and water is poisoned by PFAS. We as a committee, I think, are about to spend $100 million trying to remediate that situation. Now, if we go and we say farmers may continue to use PFAS on their soil, it seems counterindicative that we are trying to help them clean up their soil, but we're also allowing the use of the products that contaminate their soil. It's a model of inefficient government if we poison the soil and then we spend more money cleaning up the soil after the fact. I have made this bill extremely open. They do not have to mandate, they do not have to regulate the containers any way that they don't want to, other than what the EPA is asking them to do. And we heard a lot of testimony yesterday, follow EPA guidance. This gives all the opportunity to follow EPA guidance. It is the same with adjuvants. They can follow EPA guidance all day and all night. This is not requiring them to do anything different than what the EPA says. And please, can we take the 1,500 products off the conversation piece, because that's not happening here. It is 6. Thank you.
Before you go there, I do want a clarification from Director Patterson. From what Representative Pluker just said, that is correct. His amendment doesn't change anything. The original bill that moved from 1 to 2 does make a difference on those 1,500, because the 6 products you're talking about are 2 fluorinated hydrocarbons. If we stay at 1 fluorinated hydrocarbons, then it is 1,500 products. Is that correct?
That's so I will say in answer, there are 1,500 products that contain at least 1 fully fluorinated carbon atom, and there are 6 products that contain the 2 fully fluorinated carbon atoms.
So all I'm saying is, Representative Pluka, you are correct. Your amendment doesn't change anything. The original bill did. The original bill would have put those 1,500 back on the table. So your amendment, you're absolutely correct. You haven't changed anything with your amendment, but the original bill did change it. Representative Underwood.
At the current time, is it one or 2? I assume it's 2. Is that correct?
Go ahead, Director Patterson. Correct. What the question is it 1, right now, the law reads 1 or 2 is what he's asking. Fluorinated hydrocarbons.
In terms of the amendment? I guess I don't have the amendment.
Has anything to do with the bill. I think he's just talking about the law in general.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so right now BPC is working on rulemaking, and we will have language that talks about 1 fully fluorinated carbon atom as a part of that rulemaking. But there are no prohibitions of use in that rulemaking. It's all about reporting information to the BPC, but with no cancellation or prohibition of registration or use. And then, where I guess pesticides are already regulated. And, I worked through this with the AG's office. 1503 already does regulate pesticides because it's regulating all consumer products. And that language is 1 fully fluorinated carbon atom. So there's already a restriction potentially by 2030 of, unless they're otherwise exempted, of pesticide products containing 1 fully fluorinated carbon atom.
Mr. Chairman, is there, I move to ought not to pass on this bill, if that's in order.
We got several hands up. I'll come back to that to get a second, but we'll move on to Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was hoping, just because we had quite a bit of discussion, I wanted to ask Karen to go back over what the amendment does and how it fits into the scheme of what the rules are in Maine now.
So what the amendment does, it makes two changes to the original bill. It changes the definition of PFAS from 2 fully fluorinated carbon atoms to at least 1 fully fluorinated carbon atom. And then it also makes, because of that change in definition in section 1, it makes change to section 4, where it's more in line with the law in Title 30, which regulates PFAS intentionally added to products. So it just says beginning January 1st, 2030, a pesticide that contains intentionally added PFAS that may not be sold or distributed under Title 38, Section 1614, Sub 1, Paragraph B. Those are the two changes. And in terms of rules, I can't answer that question. Maybe Director Patterson can.
I was hoping to just talk about what it is that the bill does in the scheme of things, because it's my understanding from listening to this conversation that all this stuff is impacted by 2030 anyhow, and we're looking at a handful of products right now. So I wonder if I just want to look at who's in the attendee room.
Well, I mean, the committee bill.
Oh, that's my puppy.
So the committee bill adds any substance or mixture of substances intended to be used as a spray adjuvant to the definition of pesticides, and that would go into effect, assuming there's no emergency preamble. Assume if this move forward, be 90 days after adjournment. So it's not waiting until 2030. And then in section 4, it says a person may not distribute in the state a pesticide that has been contaminated by PFAS. That also would go into effect 90 days after adjournment. And then paragraph I is what has been amended by Representative Pluker's language to make it more in lockstep with Title 38 changes. And then section 5 of the bill is the piece about containers. A person may not use or cause to be used any pesticide container inconsistent with rules for pesticide containers adopted by the board. It's vague, but it's giving discretion to the board to regulate containers in the manner they see fit. They're given that authority in section 6. Again, that would be 90 days after adjournment. So the only piece that's sort of delayed to 2030 is the intentionally pesticides that contain intentionally added PFAS.
Okay, thanks, Karen. I want to see if I'm looking at who's in the room, and I want to request that we bring in Sharon Treat, because I'd just like to ask for an explanation of how this fits into the current scheme, because I think what we're doing is quite simple and frankly not enough.
Hi, can you repeat the question?
Yes, good afternoon.
And kind of keep me up to, I'm sorry, but I was actually working on something else and listening with one ear.
So Representative O'Neill, would you ask your question?
Sure. Thanks for being here. So the conversation has centered around around
Yeah,
this bill and
I gotta go. Is there any way, if you need me,
Okay, continue, sorry.
the conversation has just centered around what would this bill do and how would it fit into the context with Maine's scheme right now of PFAS laws. Would you be able to comment on that, or I could ask somebody else too?
Sure, I can come in, and we're talking now about the version that Representative Pluker has
That's right.
proposed as an
That's right.
alternative.
That's right.
I mean, what I would be concerned about making sure is retained by this, and I wasn't clear how this fit in with 264 and the affidavit that was going to be required by pesticide manufacturers, whether this narrowed the universe of information there. Because to me, I think number one, we want to have public information. I mean, before there's regulation to restrict, however many number of pesticides through the Department of Environmental Protection, people need to know that they are in fact using products that have PFAS in them. And so, I mean, to me, that is the number one thing that really needs, and that needs to be public information. The adjuvant part of it, I think, is important as well, because you have this regulation of these products when they're inside the pesticide, but the role of the adjuvants is a bit unclear, and it would be really helpful, I think, to have the board have the authority to take a look at that and decide how to regulate those materials. And I think that there is quite likely the potential for PFAS in those as well. So again, having certainly public information about that as well, so people can make their own choices and start to think about, how do we reduce the amount of PFAS that's going into the environment and onto our food, for example, as well. That's certainly a really good start. I'm leery about putting a different definition in the law. If, I just think it's important to keep the law clear with what it is. So the idea of, going in and banning immediately certain ones, if that's a decision that those are more serious than the other ones, I'm not clear on how that decision was made. But I would really just like to, at a minimum, make sure that there's the authority to regulate the containers. And it doesn't just have to be limited to the HDPE, because we're finding out that there might be other things. It's not to make the board do it, but to say, as information comes out, you have the authority to figure out ways to try to reduce the amount of PFAS that's just getting out into the environment. So that would be really important. And then the public information about both adjuvants and pesticides generally, I think is really, really important as the base level of what this legislation should do.
Representative Bernard, I'm sorry, did that answer your question, Representative O'Neill?
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Representative Bernard.
I'm not even sure how to form this question, but I do want to go back to the, you mentioned that there were 6 chemicals that would go away. And Ms. Patterson, if you could talk about those 6 and what they do, that would be the beginning of my question. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about 6 products and two active ingredients. And the 2 active ingredients are, and forgive me if these chemical names are what they are, broflanilide. And that, from what we understand, is actually a fairly newly approved active ingredient. It's a unique class of chemistry group, I won't go into the details there, but meaning it's just been newly discovered, newly marketed. It's brand new as of 2019. Its first registration with EPA was then. And it's just for the first time been registered in the state of Maine in 2022, I believe, from what we could find in our records, in sort of a cursory search. So I don't believe it's even been used in Maine yet, but there are 4 products with broflanilide as the active ingredient. 2 of them are used as seed treatments, or could be used as seed treatments for corn or for grains, or used in furrow, and then you plant into the furrow with the treatment in it. The other active ingredient, pyrofluoquinazole. And if you need me, if you'd like me to spell those out, I'd be happy to. If anybody wants to research this further, I can also send you a list of the product names and so forth, if that's of interest. But that has a wider range of potential uses, and there are 2 products with that active ingredient in them. One is called PQZ insecticide, and the other is Rycar. One is what we call a sub-registration of the other. So they're actually the same exact pesticide product, just marketed by 2 different companies. That's fairly common. And that is labeled for use on a variety of crops. It's everything from fruiting veg to tree fruit, to row crop, to leafy greens. So it has quite a broad range of potential uses. And that has been registered in Maine, I believe, since 2009. So it has been around on the market for a bit longer than broflanilide. If that helps answer your question. I don't know if I was getting at
it does.
But okay.
May I follow up, please, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Just a question about, do you know about the use of the chemical? I'm not even going to try to identify it by its name, but the one that's been around since 2009. If you could tell me about the use of that. Has it been used fairly widely in those applications that you mentioned? And then the other question is the brand new one that you talk about. Is that also, I'm not sure how you would say it, licensed in other states? Is it used in other states that you know of?
Yeah, so it is registered in both of these are registered in many other states. And if you'd like, I can provide you, I don't think the document I have in front of me doesn't have the states of registration, but that's easy enough to come by. We can certainly share that information. I would have to take a look at the data. We did, as I've reported to this committee in the last, actually yesterday, we do have 2018, 2019, and 2020 data that I could take a look at, and I'd be able to tell you what the typical uses of that product. It would be more commonly used in agriculture, and we haven't done agricultural surveys since 2014. I don't have a good reason as to why. It's something that the program appears to have just stopped doing then. But it is something we intend to pick up again and start doing. I don't get the sense that they're very commonly used products. I have had a few conversations with agricultural producers, and they're familiar with PQZ as a pesticide product, but it doesn't sound like it plays a major role in crop management for anybody, as far as I can tell.
Representative Pluker.
This isn't a question. This is just me trying to help win my bill votes here, which is that I think what we just heard from Director Patterson is that there is this bill that we're in front of you that we're worried about 1,500 potential impacts on is going to affect the use of one pesticide that's been around since 2009, another one that's brand new and has not been registered in Maine yet. So in terms of limiting use tools in the tool pocket, tool carrier of our farmers, this is impacting one.
That is correct. That is your amendment that does that. The original bill did not, but your amendment does that. Absolutely. Any other questions? Representative Underwood, are you still there? I guess not. Representative Hall.
Yeah, Representative Underwood had a doctor's appointment. He had to leave.
Okay. Representative O'Neill.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to move ought to pass as amended the way that Representative Pluker presented it. But if let's have more discussion, that's fine.
Senator Maxman.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Karen?
So I just want to make sure that it's okay with those that are moving Representative Pluker's amendment. So I would go in based on feedback from the board. I would add under the definition of pesticide, pesticide includes highly toxic pesticide. That was inadvertently left off of the definition. And then I, per suggestion of the board, would update the definition of spray adjuvant to be, I would basically plagiarize from the state of Kentucky, which I can read it to you, but it's a very much more specific and narrow in scope than what's in the committee bill.
Would you read it? Thank you.
Sure. So spray adjuvant means any wetting agent, spreading agent, sticker, deposit builder, adhesive, emulsifying agent, deflocculating agent, water, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, okay. Water modifier or similar agent intended to be used with any other pesticide as an aid to the application or to the effect of it, and which is in a package or container separate from that of the other pesticide with which it is to be used. So I don't know if those are considered friendly amendments or not.
Thanks for your question. I'd defer to the sponsor on it, and I'm happy if just with
Representative Pluker, is that okay with you?
Yeah, sounds right to me. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Linda, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Beginning with you, Senator Dill.
Well, I think we have LD 264 and 1503 that could really, move us down the road on this. And I think we're getting a little ahead of the science. So I'm going to say no.
Senator Black.
No.
Senator Maxman.
Yes.
Representative O'Neill.
Yes.
Representative Hall.
No.
Representative Schofield.
No.
Representative Osher.
Yes.
Representative Underwood, I believe, is absent. Representative Landry.
No.
Representative Pluker.
Yes.
Representative Gifford.
No.
Representative McCray.
No.
Representative Bernard.
No.
So that's 8 against and 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay, on LD 2019, an act to require the registration of adjuvants in the state to regulate the distribution of pesticides with PFAS and PFOS substances. It is ought not to pass, 8-4.
Senator, that was my question. I didn't want to make any assumptions that was the report.
Oh, sorry.
So that's the report.
Mine was ought not to pass.
on
Yeah,
8?
mine was ought not to pass.
Okay.
I don't know. I think so. Yeah, I see heads nodding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll close the work session on LD 2019 and open up LD 2021, an act to collect pesticide sales and use records for the purpose of providing information to the public. And I will start with Karen to tell us where we are with the amendment from yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, so Representative Osher did an excellent job of going over everything that led up to the committee bill, and then summarizing her amendment. So I guess I'll just go over it again really quickly. So it retains sections 1, 2, and 4 from the original bill. Oh, I see Representative Osher's hand is up.
Representative Osher.
So sorry to interrupt. Actually, I think we'll let Karen continue. Because there were many people who weighed in yesterday, we've done some work to to address the things that came up yesterday. So maybe we'll start with Karen doing the summary, and then I'll talk about the things that that I'd like to amend the amendment to address the things that came up yesterday.
Okay.
Continue,
And
Karen.
I haven't seen the latest amendment, so which is fine. I probably wouldn't have had time. So what the amendment that was presented at the public hearing yesterday, it amended section 1, which requires an applicant for pesticide registration to include any information about the pesticide available to the applicant at the time of registration. So it just clarifies that it includes, in addition to pounds of active ingredients per gallon of liquid formulations of pesticide, or pounds of desiccated pesticide applied in dry form. And then instead of just simply requiring the type of pesticide, it changed that to the brand name of pesticide, because the type of pesticide is really a subset of that information could be derived from the brand. And then section 2 defines commercial agricultural producer, and it retains that definition because there is the confidentiality provision in section 4. So if information provided to the board by a commercial agricultural producer to fulfill the reporting requirements, that information is public, which is really the default. You wouldn't even need to say that, but unless it's designated as confidential by the board. So what would happen is the producer to whom the information belongs or pertains would make that request that the information it has provided be designated as confidential. And then the board would designate that information as confidential if it determines that it's proprietary information. And then that section goes on to define what proprietary information is. So section 3 of Representative Osher's amendment, directs the board to develop and administer a comprehensive online pesticide sales and use database for documenting and quantifying pesticide sales, distribution, and application in the state by licensed general use pesticide dealers and pesticide dealers and certified applicators. And then the next subsection 2 says beginning January 1st, 2023, a general use pesticide dealer and pesticide dealers licensed to sell pesticides in the state are required to maintain a record of sale or distribution of a pesticide. And then beginning in February, they need to submit to the board's online pesticide sales and use database a report of all sales, and this happens on a monthly basis. And then the next subsection, applicators, beginning January 1st, the certified applicator is required to submit to the board's online pesticide sales and use database a report of each pesticide application performed by the applicator within 1 week after the application. And then it gives the board authority to adopt rules. Section 5 of the amendment is a provision that was in LD 1599 from the first regular session. It requires the board to submit an annual report to various joint standing committees on developments and progress made to carry out the purposes of this section, which is the state policy on public and private initiatives to minimize reliance on pesticides. And finally, in section 6, which is also from LD 1599 from that first regular session, requires the department to submit a report to ACF, HHS, ENR, and IDEA committees on progress made in developing and administering the online database. That's a summary of the amendment that was presented at the public hearing yesterday.
Any questions for Karen before I go back to Representative Osher? Okay, Representative Osher.
So thank you very much, Karen, for summarizing. And I so appreciated the input that we got yesterday on when I presented. What I heard loud and clear is that that reporting within a week after applying was arduous at a time when the workday was already overfilled with tasks to complete. And so I propose that reporting change to either monthly or probably just quarterly, because the goal is not to track things in real time. And there's no one going to come out and say, what, you did that? The goal is for us to meet the 25-year-old idea that was put into statute that the Board of Pesticide Control would inform the legislature whether we're addressing this goal of minimizing or reducing pesticide use. And the only way to determine that is to collect data. So the data collection should not be arduous by time. And so turning that to quarterly. We also heard that some people would feel that it's arduous to enter that data into a database, and where I had presented, again, with my comfort level of dealing with computers and databases, I thought that's, people will learn it and they'll just do it. But that's me being insensitive to the fact that so many of our farmers are working diligently and using the tools that they have, and they may not be using electronic tools, but they all have to keep this information. They all have record books. So this would say that beginning January 1st, 2023, certified applicators may submit pesticide applicator log record keeping data to the board's online pesticides sales and use database. Certified applicators who do not submit pesticide applicator log record keeping data online shall submit pesticide applicator log records to the board. And here, what I sent to Karen says by a certain date, but I'm suggesting quarterly would be fine. And the board will enter that log data. So the board already has people who are entering information. So this wouldn't change the amount, probably would not change the amount of data that's going to be managed manually, because there's a majority of applicators already keep things in electronic format, and then putting that into an electronic form that state should not be too arduous, especially if they're only asked to do it quarterly. So that's the one, I heard that loud and clear, and that's why I made that change. Also, I took the wording that Karen had put in about confidentiality. We heard that confidentiality was important, and Karen heard that, and she put something in which I kept, so my amendment didn't change that. And her confidentiality, turns out that what we heard from yesterday and people who contacted me is that the idea that an individual applicator would have to go to the Board of Pesticide Control and have the Board of Pesticide Control allow them to be confidential is arduous. There's a lot of applicators that would take a lot of time in the Board of Pesticide Control. And my goal is not to make each person have to stand up and say, please not me, please not me. And also, if they do that process that is written in, also means that that data is not useful, cannot be used. The data itself is confidential. So I talked with Attorney General Frey, and he assisted me in coming up with wording, which is that the information, what he said, and he said, Karen would have to smooth this out, but basically the information submitted pursuant to the statute will remain confidential. So applicator name, applicator location, and other identifying information submitted pursuant to the statute remains confidential for use by the state and research institutions, and will only be available to the public as summary data by municipality or larger geographic location. So again, I'm still putting on my lens of I'm a legislator that's trying to come up with as the person putting in this amendment for our committee bill, come up with a way to address our role as legislators, where we're supposed to try to figure out how the state is doing and how we could do better, and also keep information confidential for the people who are doing the work of the important work in our state of growing food. So anyway, those are my amendments to the amendment, and I hope that that's clear.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Representative Osher? Representative McCray.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if this is for Representative Osher, and if it's not, maybe we can find somebody that can answer it. There are different licenses or certifications for application of spray materials. And one is a commercial applicator, which my understanding is that it is somebody that is in the business of applying chemicals on land that is not their own for a commercial profit. And then there are the ones like, for example, farmers that are spraying their own land or having people work under their own license as they spray for them. And is there a difference in, as it stands right now, in their requirements to report this information?
That would go to Director Patterson.
I thought so.
Yeah, so you pretty well nailed it there with the commercial applicators conduct work for hire for compensation. And it's a little bit broader than that. It's all state government employees or government employees who do applications and anyone who's making applications in areas open to use by the public. So there are a few more caveats to that, but yep, more or less. And with private applicators, you're right, farmers we call private applicators. Those are folks who are making applications on their own property. And the two are mutually exclusive. You can't be a commercial applicator who's then making applications on your own property without a private license and vice versa. So it's yep, pretty well clear there. But yes, there is a difference in terms of what they are required to report into the board. They do all have to maintain, all of these applicators have to maintain records of their applications, and they have to make them available to board staff upon request. But they do not all have to submit those records to the Board of Pesticides Control on an annual basis. Only commercial applicators have to do that, and dealers, which is another group of folks entirely. But commercial applicators have to submit records of their applications one time annually. It's a summary of all of the applications they've made over the course of the year. And so when I've talked about reporting and the information that was included in our LD 524 report, talked about the 2019 data. And that's where we were deriving that from, was those use reports. So we're in the process of trying to compile that, but we don't actually have any staff to do it. We've been hiring temps to do the work. So I don't know how long that money will last to do that, but it's there for the moment.
So follow up, Mr. Chair, please.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Megan. I almost knew what I was talking about. Anyway, that's good to hear once in a while. Anyway, my question is, in your opinion on this bill, it's not just the commercial applicators, but it would be all applicators. We'll say that if we went with Representative's most recent amendment to the amendment, that would be required, let's say, quarterly, including the private applicators. So those private applicators are probably the people that are pushing back most against this bill, because it does impact them quite profoundly, because they, number one, not only will be required to make a report, but make 4 of them per year. Is that a good evaluation?
Yeah, and it's a more detailed report. It includes the entirety of the logbook, so which is more expansive. There are about 5 fields that the commercial applicators report to us now. And it sounds like, although I've not seen the amendment, it sounds like there's more specificity there to say they would be reporting, weather data and equipment use data, what type of equipment they're using to apply the product and rate of application and so forth. So there's a little bit more information there. So maybe that's a part of it too. I don't know. I mean, yesterday, I think what I heard at least was that it's information they don't have to report now for agricultural producers, like you've said. But it sounds like too that it might be even more thorough information. I do not know a lot of agricultural producers, although the folks who spoke yesterday are larger firms. A lot of agricultural producers maintain paper records, so they'd have to do the data entry for that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Director Patterson, 2 quick questions. Where do basic applicators fit into this?
That's a good question. So I do believe they were not specifically addressed in LD 524. It was sort of left at agricultural agricultural applicators or private applicators, I think was.
I thought it said certified applicators.
Yeah, so certified, you're right. It does say certified applicators. It's a point I noted and then didn't follow up on. Additionally, certification has a very specific meaning. As you know, so I'll just reiterate for you what you already know. So certification is actually a term used federally. So all of the BPC's authorities are granted to us by the EPA. We have to comply with the federal law, implement federal law, and then we can build upon that, as we are talking about doing today. But when it comes to certification at the federal level, it means that you have the legal ability as an individual who is certified to use restricted use pesticides, which is a very specific group of pesticides. It's getting smaller and smaller all the time. And those specific pesticides have the potential to be more toxic to humans or more toxic to the environment or both. And so they have special restrictions put on them that you can only those people who are certified can buy and sell them or buy and use them. It will add to that and say, in Maine, we require people to be licensed to use more than restricted use pesticides. In fact, nearly all uses of pesticides for compensation require a license in the state. There are basically 2 examples that don't. And they're really, really minor uses. In Maine, certification means the same thing it does at the federal level, which is someone who is essentially has passed some sort of test or met some kind of qualification. In Maine, it's exams to be able to use those restricted use pesticides.
So in this case,
basic applicators don't need to be certified.
I was going to say, in this case, they take an exam.
Exactly. And then they maintain continuing education.
Right, but they can't use restricted use pesticides.
That's right.
So according to the real definition of certified, then they wouldn't come under this, even though they're using maybe lots of pesticides.
Yeah, I think that's probably a discussion I'd want to have with the AG's office.
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking if they come under this or not. But anyway.
But yeah, I think it's a good point. I think technically in Maine, we call them certified, but
that's right. That's why I said that. Yeah.
But technically by federal law, they would not be considered certified.
Right. But we do call them certified. So
we do. Yeah.
Next is, this seems like this may add an awful lot to your plate too. If, I don't know how many private applicators keep just the logbook. So I would expect you're going to be getting quarterly lots of information that you have to enter. Have you given, I mean, this is probably the first time you've heard this, so I don't know if you give any thought how that's going to affect BPC.
Yeah, so we have over 1,200 private and ag basic applicators licensed in the state of Maine at present. I will say there's sort of on the horizon. I know that Office of Marijuana Policy is looking at more effectively ensuring that all of their individuals who use pesticides as a part of cannabis production are also licensed. And the rough estimate I've received from that group is that it's somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 additional applicators that will have license in the next few years, maybe sooner. And so, so we're looking at the very least 1,200 people plus. I had the number directly in front of me yesterday, but I've since lost that piece of paper somebody gave me. I mean, a logbook is clearly much more, it's every single application detailed out as opposed to a summary that tells you here's everything I used. But in summation, that's a lot of individual points of data to enter. I guess, that's going to require time and energy from somebody to get that information into an electronic form.
Representative Osher.
Thank you so much for describing that. So the bill is, the goal is to have a well-designed database to allow the collection of this information, and so that information can be used in a way to guide us. And so that's a really important, essential part of this bill. And so we'd be wanting to make sure that what data we would be collected, including logbooks, would be easily entered. And over time, I know from working with Efficiency Maine, I guess, my work session format, I'm supposed to be asking Megan Patterson questions. So excuse me. So
Well, we're in a work session. So in a work session, it doesn't have to be a question.
oh, okay. So my point of information is that when I started working with Efficiency Maine as a contractor, there was a database that we had to put information into. Wasn't very well designed. It was cumbersome, and the people who had to put the information in balked, and they removed it. And I was like, the problem was the database, not the collecting of the data. And I feel the same way here. That designing the database well, and that way back when Efficiency Maine required that, it was not common for people who are general contractors and efficiency specialists to have smartphones. But if that database, even the clunky one they had over a decade ago, was present now, people could be just doing it from their smartphone. So I believe that if a well-designed database is put in, even if there's the cumbersome task of having people from BPC quarterly take logbooks and enter the data, that over time, that our community of farmers and applicators will be morphing into using tools more fluidly, and then the goal of collecting the data and trying to figure out how we're doing.
Representative Schofield.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Listening to the conversation, I have some concerns. It sounds like this is potentially going to be very problematic for the pesticides board. We start off by saying, well, you can enter this stuff manually if you don't have a computer or you're not adept at using one. So you can enter it manually, send in a form, but we all know that that's short-lived. Within a short period of time, there's the form is you can't use the form. You're going to have to do it digitally. So I just think this is going to be very cumbersome, and just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Representative Hall.
Yeah, quick question is, who would be responsible for the database? Would that be the Bureau of Public, Pesticide Control?
I see Karen nodding her head yes, so I assume that's where it resides. They're entering the data, so I would assume that they would be in charge of the data. Other questions? Anyone ready to make a motion? Representative
Senator
Hall.
Dill?
Yes. Sorry, Representative Schofield.
I will move ought not to pass.
I will second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Linda, would you call the roll?
Yes, Senator Dill, starting with you.
Yes.
Senator Black,
Yes.
Senator Maxman,
Yes.
Representative O'Neill,
No, and my report would be ought to pass as amended as articulated by Representative Osher.
thank you. Representative Hall,
Yes.
Representative Schofield,
Yes.
Representative Osher,
No, and mine is ought to pass as amended by the amendment I proposed yesterday and then the changes today.
thank you. Representative Underwood, he's not here. Representative Landry,
Yes.
Representative Pluker,
Yes.
Representative Gifford,
No.
Representative McCray,
Yes.
Representative Bernard.
Yes.
So that gives us
So
Rep-
Representative Gifford, is your report the same as Representative O'Neill's and Osher?
Which is ought to pass as amended.
No, I don't know. Not to pass.
So
Okay.
you're supporting ought not to pass?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
okay.
we'll
Sorry
record
about
you
that.
as a yes.
Thank you.
I know it's counterintuitive, but
Okay.
so if I may just for clarification on what appears to be the minority report. So the reporting would be quarterly for both general use and pesticide dealers, and applicators. Correct? Where did Representative Osher go?
On my screen,
Oh,
she's
there
right
she
above
is.
you.
I'm here. I was proposing that to keep the sales as at monthly and then to change the
Just the
applicators from within a week of application to quarterly.
Okay, that's why I was asking. I'm glad I asked. So
Representative
and then,
Osher, I just might want to put it yearly and then have the submitted data be broken down by month.
Okay.
I don't know that it's going anywhere, but that was
okay.
what I would want.
Okay, so applicators submit a report of each pesticide application performed by the applicator. I was going to put within 90 days.
So Representative O'Neill, did you want to change that to an annual reporting for them instead of a quarterly?
I'm sorry, I'm lost now. I trust your work on it. Just I had spoken to you about that one piece. That was all I wanted to include.
Yeah, I thought we had said that we were talking about quarterly.
I trust your work. Yeah.
Quarterly, 90 days.
And then I'll make the change to the confidentiality provision. And just so you know, I may rephrase the, we're giving applicators, are we giving pesticide dealers the option of submitting online or an app? I guess the applicator log, that just applies to the applicators. So, okay, I may rephrase that because, and just make it 2 paragraphs that they shall online or log, rather than how it's phrased right now. But I can run that by you. But I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Linda, what was the count?
The count was 10 in favor of the motion ought not to pass, 2 ought to pass as amended, and 1 absent.
All right. On LD 1021, an act to collect pesticide sales and use record for the purpose of providing information to the public ought not to pass. 10, 2 ought to pass as amended, and 1 absent. And I will close the work session on LD 2021. Representative Pluker.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to make sure that work session was closed before making a comment about kind of the intersection of 2019 and 2013, which I get the impression of 2013 is probably going to have a supporting vote tomorrow. And for those of us who on the majority of both those bills, we've now put a situation where farmers can go and apply PFAS to their fields and then get income supplementation because their land is contaminated. And I think there's a little bit of a contradiction there, certainly not efficient government. If anybody on the majority side of 2019 wanted to work with me to amend that bill so that it was something that we could see a solid report out on this committee, it makes sense. I'd like to say I have no ego in it, I have some ego in it, but it's also about, just protecting our farmers as best we can. And I tried my best to draw back that amendment on 2019 so that it really had very little effect on our farmers as they stood today. And I know that there's a lot of outside forces working here in committee, but if they're coming to us saying they want $100 million and they want the right to spray not amendments, but pesticides or adjuvants with PFAS in them, and then get support from us after they've done so, it just is a little contradictory. So if there's some place we could land as a committee, still very open to work with folks between today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Representative Hall.
Yeah, I'd like to comment to that if I could. I believe there's a huge difference in between whether they're spraying a chemical that may have come out of a barrel or something that was lined with a PFAS liner versus industrial sludge or whatnot that's been spread on the fields at a rate of several ton per acre versus an ounce per acre, or even just a minute bit that might have come through a barrel or a sprayer. So I think there's a huge difference between the two, and I just don't want to see our farmers, be put at a disadvantage when other farmers, they're already competing on a worldwide market or nationwide market. I mean, you go into Five Guys and you see Idaho potatoes in Augusta, Maine. It's really putting our Maine farmers at a disadvantage when already, and I just don't want to see that happen. That's my 2 cents worth.
Representative Pluker.
Yeah, and I agree with you that trying to compare sludge to pesticide applications is not the same thing. But we have to remember that these PFAS are measured in parts per trillion, infinitesimal amounts. And repeated applications that are currently legal can lead them to a situation where they will then, by 2030, be requesting funds from us for remediation. And I agree with you that I don't want to do anything to hurt our farmers. That's why I've pulled it back, so it's really just only affecting one item, and that we don't know. I'm sure Megan probably knows more about its usage in 2014 at least. So if there was a place where we could land together, I'd love to land there with you.
Senator Black.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Pluker, for your concern, and I understand where you're trying to get with that. My concern is that we don't have all the facts yet of how we pollute in the fields, where this is all coming from yet. I think that we all in our everyday lives are contributing to this. As you look at the municipal sludge problem and the concentration in municipal sludge, which has nothing to do with agricultural spray and whatever. And I think that, I hear where you're coming from on it, but I think at this point in time, until we get, and the other thing is the levels, what is the proper level of contamination? And I think that is going to change different levels for different items, and different states already have and the federal government have different levels of contamination. So I think there's a lot that we need to find out before we go down that road.
Thank you to everybody.
Other questions? Senator Maxman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to weigh in because I'm in favor of trying to find some space on all of this, because I think one of the big lessons that I learned yesterday is that the state did something even though they didn't know all of the facts, and they encouraged it and they allowed it, and now we're paying the price. And I'm worried that we're repeating that same pattern again. And so given just like I can't even imagine the trauma that some of these families are going through. I don't want any other family in Maine to do that because of the decisions that we're making today. And so it makes more sense in my mind to be really cautious now. And then as we get more data, we can say, this one product, we can use it again, whoever's using it in Maine. That approach makes more sense to me. I don't want to have any liability in anything that we're going to find out in 10 years because we allowed these products to be used when we don't know all of the information.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, we're supposed to do a budget workshop, but I see that the commissioner and Amy are not here. I think we're going to work on, and it may be that since we've got a lot to still discuss tomorrow on 2013, I'm certainly okay with waiting until tomorrow to do the work session on that portion. And I think, where are you? You just moved. Representative Pluker, you had something you were going to bring up too on the budget still. And as I say, since they're not here, I guess maybe there was a miscommunication. So that we were going to do that today.
Yeah, and I do have I do have folks who've showed up here from Maine Federation of Farmers Markets and maybe one more. I'm not seeing them in the attendees list.
Okay.
Who wanted to discuss that one portion around goosenip and finny funds that I've been talking about in the budget. So if we want to do that today,
I guess we can do it without the department here. So how many people do you have? I mean,
I think I just see one.
well, that's good. And go ahead and we'll bring that one in and.
Yeah, it's James DiBiase and then Abby Farnham is also there.
All right, so there's two that we'll discuss with to see what's what, and then we'll break and finish up tomorrow with the other one.
Senator Dill,
Yes.
do you want me to contact the department?
No, I don't think so, because it's just this part. We can finish it up tomorrow, but since they're here, we'll just let them go ahead and talk to us, and we'll just finish
Oh,
off.
because I see Amy is here now.
Oh, okay.
And also newsflash, we have another bill. So we'll probably.
Newsflash, what do you mean? What do you mean we have another bill?
Yeah, Senator Stewart, send him a thank you note. So we will, I guess I would recommend we hear it tomorrow.
Tomorrow, since we can't meet next week, so.
Exactly.
All right, we can kill it tomorrow. We don't know what it is, but. All right. I don't see Amy. Oh, is she in here? Oh, she's here. Okay. Go ahead, Representative Pluka. You have a question that you want Amy Farnham to answer or talk about or something?
Yeah, Karen, do you know the section of the budget we're discussing here, which is the OSR $50,000 going to, I'm forgetting I don't remember the reference number.
So it's on page 17, if any of you have your, I can screen share, but it's the fund to address food insecurity and provide nutrition incentives. It provides funding to allow for the receipt of contributions from public and private sources in the fund. And it's right now there's 50,000 of other special revenue in fiscal year 23.
And so to pick up off of that, so what was requested by the department was 50,000 OSR. And so that is not coming from the general fund. That is money they're just establishing a fund that they're hoping to come from private sources. And just a little background on this, before COVID, when I first had this bill on the 129th, we had, I'm forgetting the exact numbers, but several $100,000 lined up in special private funds that were going to come in and fund this program within the state. So, what they're asking for is not a general fund allocation, but it is just creating a fund so we can accept funds from private sources. And in addition to what they've requested, I'd also, because if anybody remembers, we heard from Amy that there was $25,000 in one-time funding that was associated with my bill that they are just now putting out the request for proposals on. It has not been spent yet. But I'd like to talk about having 50,000.
You froze up, Representative Pluker.
He used up all the electrons.
Oh, yeah, I did. Okay.
You froze up, so we missed. Other than last thing I heard you said was $50,000, and
okay.
You froze.
Thank you. Sorry, I just realized last minute there. $50,000 in ongoing funds is what I would like to add to the budget to fund this program. And the reason for that is, and I asked Ms. Farnham and Mr. DiBiase to be here today so they can talk about how those funds will be utilized, how they're matched by federal funds. So every dollar spent by the state actually brings much more money into the state and goes directly into the hands of our farmers and puts food in the mouths of those who need it the most. So
go ahead, Abby, why don't you, if you know what he is asking of you, would you speak to it, please?
Sure. Yeah, sorry about that. Bill, you froze up again. Thank you all very much for the chance to be here to speak today. I'm Abby Farnham. I work with Maine Farmland Trust. I co-manage our nutrition incentive program, Farm Fresh Rewards.
Just remember, this isn't testimony. This is just kind of answering his question. Okay. Yeah.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Would it be helpful to provide a little bit of background information about the types of programs the fund would support?
Sure.
Sure. So nutrition incentive programs, they provide financial incentives to people who use federal nutrition program benefits like SNAP, so formerly food stamps, so that they can purchase more of the food that Maine farmers are growing. So for Farm Fresh Rewards, for every $10 a customer using SNAP spends on any local food, they would receive a $5 bonus voucher to spend on Maine grown fruit and vegetables at participating grocery stores. So half of the expenses of Farm Fresh Rewards is covered by a federal grant, which requires matching contributions on a dollar for dollar basis. So as participation in the program grows, so does the need to secure matching funds from non-federal sources. And programs like Farm Fresh Rewards and Maine Harvest Bucks, which my colleague Jimmy can speak to, have seen really tremendous growth in the past couple of years. So in 2021, participating customers redeemed over $196,000 in Farm Fresh Rewards for locally grown fruit and vegetables at 19 stores across the state. So that represents a 24% increase to the amount that was redeemed in 2020. And this growth is really exciting, but also just to ensure our budget keeps up with demand for the program. Last year, we cut back the amount of incentives that it was providing. So we were really thrilled that the legislature passed LD 691 last year to establish the state fund for nutrition incentive programs, and additional funding for this fund moving forward would provide a really important source of support to these programs and help to kind of grow them and into more rural parts of the state. And one other note, just kind of on the potential for Farm Fresh Rewards. So Maine Farmland Trust is in the beginning stages of an exciting new partnership with Good Shepherd Food Bank, where the food bank is going to lead the Farm Fresh Rewards program starting this spring. So Good Shepherd, as many of you are aware, is a statewide organization dedicated to increasing the access of nutritious and healthy food for Mainers facing food insecurity. So we're really excited for how they'll be able to be looking to grow the program with a variety of retailers and in different spaces, possibly including healthcare in years to come. So that all just to kind of provide some background around how additional and ongoing state funding would provide important matching sources to be able to leverage more federal dollars to support these types of programs.
Thank you. James, would you like to add anything? Just introduce yourself first, please.
Sure. Yep. So my name is Jimmy DiBiase, and I'm the executive director at the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets, and I've been overseeing the Maine Harvest Bucks program. That is the nutrition incentive program that takes place at farmers markets, along with we partner with other organizations to see it take place at farm stands and CSAs and mobile farm stands across the state. And just want to echo and elaborate a little bit on Abby's point that these funds, this is growing in popularity across the country. There are multiple states that have established state funds to support this program because of its capacity to support farm viability, also fight food insecurity, and bring in a lot more money supporting, when it comes to farmers markets, we're talking about supporting like just rural economic revitalization. And yeah, just wanting to, with the federal dollars side, it does leverage federal grant funds, but it also directs food stamp dollars, right? SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Access Program. There's 30 million plus coming into the state every month, and our programs incentivize people with that money to spend it on local food. So in Maine this year, between my program and Abby's program, we're talking about well over $1 million in sales between SNAP and our bonus bucks. I can tell you at farmers markets like Presque Isle and the Augusta Mill Park Farmers Market, which I encourage you to visit during the summertime, 25 to 50% of the sales on any given day at those markets come from SNAP and Maine Harvest Bucks. And that's what this program is funding. Farmers markets are great for new and beginning farmers and sustaining the livelihoods of hundreds of farmers and thousands of people across Maine. So just want to really emphasize that point. And these funds not only support just purchasing the fruits and vegetables, but they also support, a market like Presque Isle Farmers Market. It costs $2,000 to run the program there every year. And this past year, there was over $17,000 in sales that this program alone generated for. So, yeah, thank you. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank,
Representative Pluker.
thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you both of you for being here. If I don't know who would be able to do it the best, but for every $1 the state invests in this program, how could you give us a sense of how many dollars are going into the hands of farmers?
I would say, so, this easily over $4 to $7. Yep. It's a lot of variables, but $4 to $7 comfortably. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Are there
And
any
I
other?
could,
Yeah, go ahead.
sure, just to maybe provide some additional insight too. I mean, for the Farm Fresh Rewards program budget, over 75% of it right now goes to direct incentives. So that's directly to the bonus dollars that people can use to purchase locally grown fruits or vegetables at participating grocery stores.
Okay. Representative Pluker, did you speak to the department about this and extra funds for them in this program and what their thoughts were? I will ask, since the commission is now here, I'll ask her that directly, but I was just curious if you had spoken to them. So
Honestly, the last 24 hours have been a blur. I think so.
Commissioner, welcome back.
Thank you. Can you I just jumped on.
Yeah.
Just kind of bring
I'll
me
let
up to speed.
Representative Pluker tell you what he's proposing.
So I'm forgetting the reference now, but so we're looking at
Reference number 206, page 17.
thank you. You requested $50,000 in OSR, other special revenue, basically to create a fund that would come, that would be able to hold private funds coming in. And my original bill, which created this fund, or didn't create the fund, but created this program within the department, was $25,000 of one-time funding. And I'm now bringing to the committee the idea of doing $50,000 in ongoing funding to help fund these programs. And we just heard from Maine Federation of Farmers Markets and Maine Farmland Trust about how these funds will be used. And we were looking to you to see, do you have a comment on those funds and how they might be best used?
Yes, yeah, I'm very familiar with this program because I was at Maine Farmland Trust before this and have a good working knowledge of it. I mean, my understanding is that the majority of the funding flows right through into the hands of farmers, which is a positive, and also a positive that it gives folks that utilize the program an opportunity to choose the food that they want. And so I think that's very positive as well. It's a really good program. So I guess I'll just leave it at that.
All right. So I guess we're to the point where if you want to make a motion, Representative Pluker.
Yep, and I would move, Karen, have I described it enough times? $50,000 in ongoing funding into the same program from the general fund.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Okay.
Any discussion?
So right now, it doesn't say ongoing, I guess.
This is in addition, so the OSR to hold private funds will still exist. I would like to vote for that as well.
So, okay, so is this, so right now it's 50,000 in fiscal year 23. Are you proposed, is your motion to increase that by another 50,000?
It'd be two separate funds. One to hold one and other special revenue that would hold the money coming from private sources. And I think that's what's already being requested in the budget.
Yes.
And a separate one, which would be 50,000 in ongoing funds from the general fund.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, you've moved it in. Is anyone opposed? Representative Underwood is opposed.
And what's the head count?
Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think we're all here.
Wow. Okay, so that's on reference number 206 and the new addition, which does not have a reference number, which would be 50,000 from the general fund.
Nope, sorry. We lost Senator Black.
Oh, 11-1.
Good thing you do it in pencil, as you've said before.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the 50,000 is ongoing.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's it.
Well, yeah, we still have the 100 million, but I think it'll be best suited for us after we get language from Amy, et cetera, if we do it tomorrow after we do our work sessions. So I hate to keep kicking it down the road, but if no one has any objection, we'll do it tomorrow. And Representative Underwood is back. I don't know if he wanted to vote Linda on
2021, 2019.
Yes, I'd vote on both the bills that I didn't get a chance to vote on, and ought not to pass on both of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll enter those.
Okay. Karen, anything else for us today?
So just since Amy is still listening, as soon as you can, or the commissioner as well, as soon as you can get that language to me that I need for 2013, so I can circulate it to those who need to review it before tomorrow, that would be great. So, and the other thing is, we do have a new bill, not kidding. So it's LD
8006.
2025. So I guess we'll just go ahead and schedule the public hearing.
Do you have a
tomorrow
title?
At 9.
Do you have a title of it?
Yep, it's a resolve to authorize the Bureau of Parks and Lands to enter into a lease with Rustic Technologies, Inc. for a parcel of land in Township 11, Range 4.
Well, hopefully that sounds like a quick and easy one, but having said that, it'll probably be really involved in some way. So. Yeah, is there such a thing? I don't know. Okay, anything else, Karen?
No, so the start time is 9 a.m.
9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll see everybody at 9
Public
a.m.
hearing, it will follow. So what we have left is 2013 and the budget and the bill that we hear tomorrow.
And we'll do the public hearing followed by the work session and then immediately, and then we'll do the other 2 work sessions. Yep.
Okay.
And thank you, Linda, for filling in today.
My pleasure.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn, Senator, till tomorrow at 9.
All right, seconded by?
Second.